Hey guys, welcome to another live show, another live She Knows Arsenal. Make sure you guys are Oh, I'm frozen. Sorry, I froze there for a second. Make sure you guys like this video, subscribe to the channel. Let me just check this really quick. I saw that my internet was like a little bit spotty, so just give me 2 seconds. Let me just check. I know I like froze there for a second, but I should be back. Let's see. Check on my end, see what you guys are seeing. Let's see. Also, I don't know if you guys can see me or not yet, but there's a poll up that you guys should be voting on. Should we be worried? Are you worried? Are you fine? Like, what are you thinking? Because obviously, the window is about 2 weeks. It's been open. 2 weeks it's been open, and we don't really have maybe all the targets that we've wanted, and there's maybe not the links that we were expecting. So are you worried? Are you not? That kind of stuff. So let me know. Listen, there's been maybe some updates on Nico Williams as well as Rodrygo. The Nico Williams one is more firm. The Rodrygo one is coming out of Brazil, so we'll talk about that. And there has been agreement with Gyokeres in terms of the fee, so we'll talk about that as well. But I wanted to start off with just, I hope everybody's okay. There's some really sad things happening in the world right now. I'm pretty sure we're all aware. And so I'm praying for everyone, and that we can all stay united during, these very strange times that we're in right now. I mean, I feel like there's, yeah, I just feel like, without getting like political or anything like that, just know that praying for all of you guys. I'm praying for everybody that's been affected. There's just been so many things in my country, in other countries, across the world, things going on in India, things going on in Iran, things going on at home with the ICE deportation. So there's a lot of things happening. So I'm praying for everybody. Hopefully we can stay united. Football does really like ground us and bring us together, I feel like, as people. And so that's why I love this community so much, because I feel like it's an opportunity to kind of like set those like really difficult things aside and like just think about, football, which is so minuscule when we start thinking about what's happening in the world. So I hope everybody's okay. I hope you guys you're well. And if you know anybody affected in those areas, I'm praying for them, and I'm praying for you. And yeah, without further ado, we'll get into the actual football. Hold on, my friend is calling me. Hey. Hey, sorry, I went live on the news. You didn't know I was live?
You're live?
Yeah, say something in the in the mic. They can hear you.
I didn't know you were live. That's my bad.
I'll call you after, okay?
Bye.
So yeah, hopefully you guys are all okay. There Are No Perspective says much love and prayers to all those suffering all over the world. Big up Jess. I thought Edu was the problem. Just say it. Kamala won. This wouldn't be happening. I don't really want to go into those things, like the deep into political stuff, because it's just quite dark. At this time, like, I'm a millennial, so I feel like every couple of years I go through something that's quite traumatic, from like either a political or a natural disaster or something weird is going on. So yeah, I have gone through enough. We've all gone through enough, so let's keep it with football. But I just hope that everybody is safe, and I'm praying for you all. That's my really good friend, Gabby. She's been on the channel before. We were actually speaking before I went live, and I was debating whether or not to go live, because I know it's a little bit later in the UK, but I just thought I'll give it a whirl just in case you guys are awake and, and not out, and you guys want to talk about these things. There's a part of me that's very like, okay, We've gotten Kepa done. We've gotten we know Zubimendi's done. We know we're kind of like working on the striker. So I'm like kind of okay. But the one thing that I did stress in this window that has to get done is that left wing. I feel like that is the biggest upgrade that we can make in this window, period. And you guys know my stance on Kai Havertz, but if I had to choose between getting a striker, getting a left wing, if I had to choose, I would say the left wing needs to come in because we just need to upgrade there. We need something different. We need to release some of the pressure on the right-hand side. And even though Kai has his faults, we know he's going to score goals. We know that he's going to at least get us 15 to 17 goal involvements, but the left-hand side is very much so a conundrum. And so bringing in another winger is it's it is unacceptable not to get one. And I know there's some people that are like, they don't like to hear the words unacceptable or, it just can't happen or you must, but you have to. Like, you need to get more than one attacker in. The types of attacks that are being built around us, in the clubs that we want to be able to compete with, Real Madrid, Barcelona, PSG, Man City, we are nowhere near that. No matter how you slice it, no matter how many goals we've scored in past seasons, our attack is not stacking up to other attacks. We are well behind. I don't know what it is with this club and the inability to kind of like just get a lot of attacking signings in. It is like pulling teeth to get some attacker in. And I'm not quite sure why that is. We'll get into the nuts and bolts of everything that's happening with Nico Williams and Rodrygo. But what I will say is that they are our top options, but there is no reason why we shouldn't get someone in this window. I'm not the biggest fan of Leao. He is available. Not the biggest fan of Semenyo. He's available. Not totally into Lookman. He's available. Noosa's there. You can get Xavi Simons to play more of like a creative midfielder on the left role. There is so many options out there. I'm not trying to hear at the end of the window that you couldn't figure something out or you couldn't get your number one target. We know what we look like without bringing in players up front. Arteta said it himself that they knew that they didn't do enough and they put our players in jeopardy in terms of injuries, and they knew that they would get those injuries because they didn't do enough. So I don't care if Nico Williams or Rodrygo's not available. There's more than enough players out there, and this is why you have scouts. This is why you have a top DOF. You have people that can go out there and say, well, can't get blank, but I can bring you blank. So I'm not trying to fucking hear it. I'm really, really not. I really do think that like every Arsenal fan should agree that getting anything less than two attackers is unacceptable in this window. And if you're saying it's not because look at what Martinelli did against Brazil or, blah, 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 then I just feel like you're just being totally like delusional. We need stuff, we need shit. I just don't want to hear it, but in terms of, what's actually going on, probably about a couple, like maybe 2 or 3 hours ago, the reports had started coming out about Nico Williams in Barcelona. The update is basically that they have been in contact with Deco. Nico Williams' agents have been in contact with Deco. They're negotiating. He's willing to come down on his wages, which was always like kind of like the block supposedly between us and him. And he's willing to come down on his wages by about half to make the deal go through with Barcelona, which makes sense because that was probably always his number one option, was to go to Barcelona, which I can accept that. Sometimes you're just not somebody's number one option. What I cannot accept is that this would stop us from getting someone else. Because you will have known that if he's your number one option, you will have spoken to him to a certain extent where he would have let you know whether or not you were his top pick. So you need to have other options available to you, unless you're just not doing your due diligence and you just have your finger up your nose. So it looks like he's off to Barcelona, which over the last couple of days as well, they had been speaking about Bayern, which made me think, okay, he's probably on the market. Top teams are not going to be sniffing around a player that's saying, I'm staying at Bilbao. Right? So Barcelona will probably pay the release clause or figure out some way to get Bilbao to bend over and do some sort of different type of deal so that they can get Nico Williams. So that's fine. Now, when it comes to Rodrygo, I did see something maybe a couple of hours, not even a couple hours ago, maybe like an hour ago about from a Brazilian outlet that Alonso doesn't want him sold. And I think it's a good thing, whether or not he wants to come or not, that we understand what his situation is right now. If we know right now that, you know, both Nico Williams and Rodrygo are off the table, right? Because this is like UOL Esporte, you know, I'm pretty sure that's a Brazilian outlet, right? Um, so if that's the case, that's fine because now we can pivot. It's early on in the window. This should not prevent us or inhibit us from being able to go get someone else, right? But essentially, the rumor is out there that Alonso doesn't want him to go, right? Which kind of makes sense to me because a player as talented as Rodrygo, if I was a manager, I would want him to stay. I'm just getting my feet through the door. I'm going to find a way to make it work, right? And so even if we can't and I would be disappointed because those are my top two options. I really like those two players for different reasons. Rodrygo lifts the levels. Nico Williams is the perfect fit for what we're trying to do. Neither one of them will probably be playing for Arsenal next season. So where do we go from here? And that's where I kind of start the conversation off is now what? Now what? Because it shouldn't be the case that this means that the train stops. Arsenal really need to make sure that it's a non-negotiable that they go out there and get this left wing. But I am afraid that they will do what they've done in past windows and say, you know what, couldn't get Rafinha, so we're not going to get anything. You know what I mean? Couldn't get Nico Williams, so we're not going to get anything. Can't get Rodrygo, maybe not get anything. To me, that's not an option. So they need to pivot and pivot fine. Or pivot quickly. And it's fine if you can't get those number one options, especially in the scenario that they are in. It's not really about paying the money or anything like that. It's just one is moving to his number one option and the other one is not moving at all. Those are things that I can deal with, So yeah, we need another left wing, period. 100%. John says, have you watched James Lawrence Alcott's video on how Zubamendi, Rodrygo, and Sesko will change our system? No, I haven't watched it yet. I saw that, he put something out about Zubamendi changing Declan Rice and Odegaard's roles. When I get a chance to watch it, I will take a look at it. And I do think Zubamendi will make a big difference. I do think Sesko would make a difference. Left wing is definitely pivotal to that as well. So I definitely will take a look at that. Momin says Arsenal have a pull issue. Attackers don't want to play under Arteta's system. It's that simple. It's not that the club isn't trying. Players just don't want to come. Do you guys agree? Do you actually agree? Because I guess my feeling on this would make more sense if we were actually putting in bids for players and they were rejecting us, but we're not. We went through multiple windows and not even tried to get attackers. So I think I would buy into this idea just a little bit more if in the last two windows we went for attackers and they just rejected us. Williams quite literally just wants to go to Barcelona. And I think if we're honest with ourselves, if you're a Spanish player and you have the opportunity to play with your Spanish counterpart, you get a chance to play for the champions of La Liga, you're probably going to take that over Arsenal. You know what I mean? And that might he just may not want to leave Spain, which we've kind of said over and over again. Not being able to pull Rodrygo from the best club in the world, the most prestigious club in the world is not really an indication of people just don't want to play for us. When's the last time we've actually went for an attacker and we just didn't get them? I'm trying to, because we just don't go for attackers unless they're going for them and we're not seeing it. Think about the way that we've done things. We went for Jesus, we got him, even though Chelsea were interested in him. We went for Trossard, we got him. So what attackers have we went for that rejected us because they did, you think that they didn't want to play for us because Mudryk was desperate to come to us. He was desperate, so I don't know if I 100% agree with that. And even with Rafinha, to me it's the exact same thing as Nico Williams. it wasn't so much about Arsenal, it was the fact that his dream club was on the table, and I don't know if, like I don't know if, like, this is something that I'm making up, but I feel like it is quite common that players from, like, Latin countries or, Brazilians, whatever, they want to go to one of Real Madrid or Barcelona most times. They all want to end up there. I think actually most players, even outside of Latin players, have some sort of like, my dream is go to Barcelona or Real Madrid. So if that's on offer, which it was to Rafinha, we were never going to be in the picture. So to me, that's completely different. I think we don't like the way that we play. So, we're thinking that, well, why would a player want to play for Arsenal when we play such shit football, right? But I would need to see us actually get rejected by multiple players. Like if we start getting rejected from Premier League players that are moving to other Premier League teams, I can understand that. But it's not even like we're putting in bids. I think my biggest complaint over the last maybe 2 or 3 seasons, that we just haven't even attempted to get attackers. We just haven't, you know? Um, Gunnar says Rafinha always wanted Barca. Arsenal need to stop effing around, stop being cheap, and get Rodrygo and Gyokeres. Do you think we're being cheap? Do you think we're being cheap? Do you think? Yeah, I don't know. Because Rodrigo's situation is not about being cheap. It's about whether or not he's actually on the market. And if Alonso wants him to stay at the club, that's not really a cheapness issue. With Gyokeres, it's a little bit different, and we'll talk about that in a second. David says, I think we are hamstrung by wages and might have some issues making big deals work. Arsenal is not going to sign anyone worth a damn. Arsenal will have Havertz as their number 9 on opening day. We will not win any trophies, and Arteta will be given an extension. Okay. Dio says, I voted on the poll. Okay, great. Belichick says, just people are stressing. I mean, I don't necessarily, and I said this on Twitter earlier, because I do feel like there's an element of like almost like gaslighting in a way where, people are like, why are people so, concerned about the window? The window is closed right now. You shouldn't expect anything to happen. Yet and still, like, Deco is actively negotiating with Barcelona now, or Nico Williams now. And Arsenal fans were this morning saying, well, why do you expect anything to happen? The window is closed. But people sign players outside of the window all the time. We see it. We've seen players get signed before the window even closed, or even open. We know of even like somebody like Matthias Cunha. He, we already knew that Manchester United were negotiating for him before the season even ended. So the window was not open. So this whole is bordering on gaslighting. The window's not open. So why do you expect anything to happen? Why are you guys, so upset? The window just opened. It's fine. Like, and I'm just like, even though I don't share all of that anxiety, like I don't share that sentiment that like we're not going to get any players. Like I don't necessarily believe that 100%. I don't really understand why people are sitting here saying, why are people panicking? I'm like, I feel like that am I the only one who feels that way? I feel like it's like borderline gaslighting. Like it really is. Like sitting there, because like I was like, the Nico Williams thing is very strange to me, because he's been one of our top number 1, if not top target for multiple summers now. But we've never made a move. We've never tried to sign him. It's just he's our number 1 target, but his wages are obstructive or are going to be an issue. If that's the case, and that he's not going to come down on his wages, then why is he still top of our list? And or why are we not actually actively negotiating at this stage? Now we kind of know that maybe Arsenal always knew that Barcelona was the number 1 option. But he never even made like any sort of indication that like if Barcelona didn't come in that he would move. So from my perspective, it's like, why are you still holding a candle for some guy that's not jumping out of his seat to come to you, or at least acting like he's interested? It was just like a very strange thing. And I'm just like asking the question, like, why is this guy still our number 1 option? You either want to pay for him or you don't. The release clause has been there and the wages have been the same since last summer. So like, why is he still on the option? Well, are you not sure that you're just making up that link? you know, are we sure that Ornstein and Fab are even that reliable? Them saying it doesn't mean it's true. And I'm just like, okay, so now David Ornstein and Fabrizio don't know shit. And the link to Nico Williams was fabricated by fans. Why are you gaslighting? Like, it's like, come on, like, because if Ornstein turns around today and he puts out a tweet saying Arsenal are interested in Messi, you guys are going to fucking think it's true, right? Because we know that David Ornstein is pretty reliable, right? So it's just like the weirdest thing. But yeah, I'm very much so like, just, in the what now? Like, what are we going to do now? I'm okay. Like, I'm relatively okay with the way that this is like, unfolded. One player probably not moving, other player moving to the club that he really wants to go to. Fine. What next? Right? Who do we go for next? Because there's so many players out there that you could go get. There's always talent. There's always talent available. So go get someone. Um Woo, we're signing Messi, Ornstein Bamba. But I guarantee that, people would be like believing it if he said it, you know? Um, let's see. I heard that Berto wants Gyokeres and Arteta wants Sesko. I mean, we've kind of been there, done that. And Jonathan says, when we start to panic, Jess? When do we start to panic? I think like AFTV just did a video on like when to start panicking, or like when is it okay to start, criticizing or being upset or concerned. And that's up to you. Some people are already upset because of the way that the season ended, and so like there's no like set time. I will say that my expectation is that we have at least one of our attackers in before the preseason starts, which is around like July 20th. So they have, quite a while to get it done before I start to like be like the fuck, and I also think next week I am kind of going to be expecting some movements on the striker, because at a certain stage negotiations have to move forward, and if they're not, then turn your attention to something else, or go to a different target or something, because we can't be beholden to RB fucking Leipzig. It's not, you need to sell, you know. We don't need to buy your player, you need to sell. There are another player that we can go for. So I think I just want to see some sort of like an acceptance that maybe we're not going to get certain players, and then a pivot, and then an action. And I think that's the thing, is we never really see the pivot and an action. It's like we're interested, and then just nothing after that. Pivot and action. Next player, put in a bid, So next week, that's kind of what I'm expecting, because my feeling on like the Sesko thing right now is it's everybody's playing hardball. And so we'll maybe come to a midpoint, because we are in ongoing negotiations with RB Leipzig. And, it takes time, I think. And I really do think ours takes a lot of time, because there's a lot of checks that have to happen. Arteta has to check, Berta has to check, Lewis has to check, Garlic has to check, Gunnersaurus has to check, Win has to check, everybody has to fucking check, And so it takes even longer when everybody has to look at it and then comb through it. And then, so it just takes longer, but I just want to see a nice little pivot, and an action instantly, make RB Leipzig shit their pants a little bit. Like, oh, they're really going for Gyokeres. We need this money, because they need money. So yeah, Leao is available, man. Not the best, but it's better than what Arsenal have. And you guys know I'm not a big Leao person, but I would prefer to get Leao instead of nothing, because our attack stinks. So we're not in a position where we can just be sitting there like, well, if they're not our number one target, then don't go for anything. And I feel like some Arsenal fans are buying into this whole like, we're only like one or two players away and we're fine. We scored this amount of goals. We had injuries. So, if we don't get it, it's fine. Like that. No, it's not okay. It's just not okay. Look at the attacks that our rivals have, not just in the league, but also who will be competing up against in Champions League. And look at what the fuck we have. We're talking about Havertz, Trossard, Martinelli, Saka, and Ethan. That's not enough, so we need to figure this out. Let's see. I've been hopeful that we'll win a Prem for the past 3 seasons. Next season, I don't think we'll win anything. Is Nico going to Barca? Then Rafinha is available. I mean, if Nico is off to Barca, it means Rafinha is holding bench. See, listen, Lay, I hear what you're saying, but this is a real Arsenal way of thinking about things. Top clubs don't worry about having good players that have to compete for positions. I think we did the same thing with Barcola. Oh, Kvaratskhelia is going, so surely Barcola is off. But there's plenty of minutes to go around for teams that are actually fighting on all 4 fronts. There's plenty of minutes to go around, and for some, like for Nico Williams and Barcola, they're basically guaranteed at least 1 trophy a season. They will either, especially at PSG, you're guaranteed multiple trophies a season. You're going to go deep into the Champions League, and you're going to play quite a bit because, they will beat up most teams like 6-0 or whatever, and then they'll take people off so you'll get playing time, or you'll start in certain games. You see what I'm saying? So the way that we think about things is you can only have 2 good players and then everybody else is bench, and you're not going to be able to keep top players happy that are not always starting. That's an Arsenal problem because Arsenal don't really compete on all 4 fronts, and you're not guaranteed to win anything. But for PSG players, they don't have to worry about that. Their Barcola's spot is not under threat. If he has the same season that he had this season, he'll still make the French national team. He'll still make it. He had like 20 goals or some shit like that. Like, he'll still make it, So that, to me, that is just an Arsenal way of thinking. Arteta has built a culture around starters and bench, and also not really competing because we have bigger fish to fry. Big teams don't worry about that. When we were at our peak, we had Kanu and Wiltord sitting on our bench. They could have started for any other team outside of us in Manchester United. And nobody was saying, well, they need to go, because they're not getting playing time. They knew that they were guaranteed at least 1 trophy. We were going deep in the Champions League, and there would be playing time for them. We need to get out of this idea that we can't have top players that aren't guaranteed starts. We need that. We need competition, for places, especially in the wing positions, attack, not just, depth, but true competition for places. We just don't have it. Valeria says, trying to think from Rodrygo's point of view, why would you stay to play in an unnatural position, which will hinder your productivity numbers-wise? He ain't starting ahead of Vinicius or Mbappe. I don't know. Maybe I don't know what the conversations between him and Alonso have been. These are reports coming out of Brazil, by the way, so we don't know if they're 100% correct. Like Marca, Marca were saying that the Zubamendi deal was doing this, and that they were coming to hijack only for the more reliable people to say it's not true. So these are people that, especially because I've seen Marca probably say something similar. We don't know for sure, but if that is the case, then that Rodrygo is going to stay, then we just need to pivot. We would need to move on. We know who their main people are. Real Madrid are building their side around Vinny Jr., Mbappe, and Bellingham, and now they have Mascherano coming in, who is going to be a starter. So maybe Rodrygo doesn't mind becoming Lucas Vazquez. If he does, that's on him. Now, is that his name? Lucas Vazquez? I don't even know his name for real. He's just been around there for a long time. But yeah, but some reports out of Brazil are saying that they've, like Alonso has convinced him or, so I guess we'll wait for the more reliable people to come through. But there has to be almost like Arteta needs to be told once if Rodrigo's not available that, okay, you haven't gotten who you want, but we're going to go get someone else. He can't be like, oh, well, if we can't get Rodrygo, let's wait till next season and see if we can get him. No, it needs to be moved on. Gabrielle was talking about Rodrygo saying his name is mentioned a lot. If it was up to me, of course, meaning like on whether we will sign Rodrygo, I'm pretty sure like Arteta's obsessed with him. The players, especially the players that have played with him before, understand how good of a player he is. He just, it just depends. It really does depend. And I wouldn't begrudge him either way because I can see either way how he could come to that decision. I could see how you could come to the decision to stay if that was your dream, to go to Real Madrid. So yeah. Does Arteta really want creative and dynamic players or just players that are easy to coach? It seems to be the latter. Do we just tempt Juve and get Yildiz? It seems the left wing options lessen day by day. To me, there are still so many options. I'm going to be really honest with you guys. I know that it feels like they're lessening day by day, but there's still plenty of options out there. Whether I love those options or not, that's neither here nor there. But also, like, I know the Yildiz thing, I think we're being used for him to get a new deal because they're trying to renew him. So I wouldn't get too excited about that one. And they'll want like 100 million pounds for him or at least 80 million pounds. So yeah. To decide to leave Real Madrid can't be an easy decision, which is why I feel like as much as I can sit here in my house in LA, I can sit here and be like, he should go, he should do this, he should do that. But it's a much bigger decision for a player that's actually made their dream move and has to decide to leave, a place where he's not being kicked out, because I don't think he's being kicked out. I think this is a decision that he's going to have to make and live with. And so it may be the case that he wants to see what life is like. There will be no shortage of suitors for Rodrygo if he decides to leave after he has a season with Alonso. There's just people are still going to want him. People still want Ansu Fati for fuck's sake. And he has been like just hopping around trying to figure out where to be at outside of Barcelona for years. So I just feel like he's going to have to make that decision, and I don't begrudge him whatever decision that he makes, because as a player, when you make your dream move, you want to probably make it work, and it's probably really hard to see it fizzle out. So yeah, and if I'm Alonso, I'm also lying to you. I'm gonna be real. If I'm Alonso, I need everything I could possibly have in my arsenal to ensure that I win something. And if we go through an injury crisis, I would much rather see Rodrygo on the bench there, waiting for me to call his name than nothing at all. So if I'm Alonso, I'm buttering him up. I'm telling him he's the guy. I'm gonna find a way to utilize you, whatever, because I got a job to do. In his decision, I hope somehow we get him. I would love that, especially to leave and come to a team that doesn't win anything nowadays. I mean, yeah, there's that. Watkins will be the striker and will sign Rashford on loan on the final day. That would be tragic. If that is that like your worst case scenario, that we get Watkins, like, would you die? Like if we got Watkins and Rashford, because I was also thinking that Rashford is really desperate to go to Barcelona. If Nico Williams goes there, you're not going there. So where is he going to end up? I fear he ends up being an option again. Premier League proven, definitely the type of winger that I feel like Mikel would like. Maybe not the temperament, but if we ended up with Rashford and Watkins, would you die? I mean, they're both English. He likes that. I don't know. Did I spill this whole ginger ale on me? Yes, I did. Wow. Tragic. Did they see that? But yeah. Actions speak louder than words. Hopefully Rodrygo doesn't get a lot of starts during the Club World Cup and decides to leave. Yeah, and I mean, the sad thing will be is if we wait and then he ends up staying, there has to be a cutoff point, you know, at some stage. And I think I would be really disappointed if we went into next season and the first game we have like kind of the exact same team. I think that would really kind of disappoint me. I think at the beginning of the season, you wanna feel like you're starting a new season. Sometimes it doesn't feel like I think the beginning of last season felt so dead to me because we had missed out on the league by 2 points, and we also were really poor in, like, almost every single other competition, and then we turned around and put out the exact same team essentially, you know? I think that was like there was no excitement, there was nothing to look forward to, it was almost like a continuation of the last season. If we start off next season and it's the exact same team, you know, he's not starting Zuby, it's the exact same back line and, it's the exact same front line. We're watching Martinelli and Kai Havertz. I think it's gonna be disappointing, and I just don't see the fans at least getting up for it. They need to see new players come in. I think yeah, um, I think we need to see new players coming in so we can be excited about something. Ain't nobody gonna be excited about watching the exact same team roll out there against Sunderland under the lights on Friday. Social Join says nothing will change under Mikel. How do you people not get it? He ain't the guy. Mascherano still playing for River during the Club World Cup. I don't think Ozo regrets moving to Arsenal. To be fair, he loved playing for us because of anger. He did love playing for us. There's a lot of people in the chat, and Jess has 6 likes. Let's hook her up. Yeah, yeah, like the video. Yeah. What CL said. Come on now. I don't know if Ozo regrets moving to Arsenal, but from the outside POV, he missed out on 4 potential UCLs. Rodrygo will not leave unless they want him out. Guys, we're getting Sesko and Zuby. Relax. I realize I was being a negative Nelly, but I'm tired of seeing Arsenal do the same thing each season and expecting different results. You have a drinking problem. Um, Watkins ain't bad in my opinion. Rashford is a big no. I don't mind Watkins, but he should for sure be the last option. Hi, Jess. We are not getting the Real player. We don't have a pair of midfielders that can work as just two. Yeah, it's just as long as they are ready to pivot, I'm I'm okay. Like, you know what I mean? Like I told you guys, I try not to get hung up on the players that I want because I know that Arsenal are not operating under what Jessica wants, So if I get hung up on the exact player, then I'll never be happy. So my whole thing is like we need to get left wing. That's an upgrade. And we need to make sure that we get the striker, whoever that ends up being. And I like both Gyokeres and Sesko a lot. So I would be kind of like okay with either. Um, let's see, I wrote down, I can't remember from my own brain because I'm old, but I had like replied to somebody because somebody was like, there are no upgrades outside of Nico Williams and Rodrygo. And I was like, what do you mean by that? Like, there are other players, like the fuck? And even if like, you don't see the player as a clear upgrade, you still need to bring someone in. I don't give a fuck. Lookman, Simmons, Nusa, Semenyo, Barcola, Matoma, Leao, the attainability of those players could be different, but the reality is I just named like 7 players that they're still available even if Nico Williams and Rodrygo do not come. Like I would take any of those players just to not feel like we're looking at the same group of players. I cannot do it. They're not good enough. Boy, here again. You're all day on Arsenal platforms. I see you guys talking to each other. Owen says it would be so Arsenal to sign Watkins after reportedly rejecting him in Jam. It cannot be. It cannot be. It cannot be. So, but yeah, like I said, just Lookman, available. Simmons, available. Nusa, maybe available. Semenyo, available. Barkala, maybe available. Matoma, you could probably get him too. Liao, definitely available. He's 100% available. Mark says, you guys are talking like we're miles away. We're a 90-point team at the moment if everyone is fit. Just need one or two to guarantee the league. I kind of agree and I kind of disagree with that. I think we are really, really close, which is what's frustrating. But in terms of the league, now we don't know exactly. Last 3 seasons, you didn't need more than like 90 points. Looking at Liverpool and City and how they're improving, it may go back up to 100 points, and we still haven't scratched 90. We still haven't had 90 points. So we don't know what it's going to be. It's probably going to be much harder now. But you know, I think it's not even just about bringing in the players. You could bring in 2 really good players for Mikel, but if he still does not have the ability to, like, rotate when we need to, figure out a way to get the players, like, I know that people blame the players all the time, but the mentality comes from the manager. There's still something about like like that extra 5% that Mikel can't get out of his team to get them over the line. And if I know that the Prem is really, really difficult, like it's really hard. You quite literally have to be the best team. For the Premier League, there is no way we're going to be able to fraud our way to the Prem if we're not the best team. It only happens every once in a while, like a Leicester season. It's a magical thing that we'll never see again. But 99.9999999% of the time, you have to be the best team because over that 38 game period, it is going to even out everything. Injuries, talent, bad referees calls, all that kind of stuff. And I just don't see how the team that they're building plus Pep and the team that we're building plus Arteta will be better than them. I just don't see it. But he can't even get us over the line in cups where you don't have to be the best team. So for me, it's not even just about improving the players. It's Mikel he needs to be better, and I think that's always the part that's missing from some people. It's like, well, just get him the players and it'll just happen for him. How is he going to beat this Pep team? Klopp couldn't do it with a damn near perfect side. He only did it once, and City had to fall off terribly. The only other fall off that we've seen of City under Pep, like the one that they had when Liverpool first won the Prem under Klopp, is the type of fall off that they had this past season when Arne Slot won the league. I just don't see how we're going to be able to, no matter what we get. We could get Gyokeres and Rodrygo. We could get Sesko and Liao or whoever. I just don't see how that team is going to have more or be able to be better than the team that they're building. I just don't see it. I still feel like we'll lose 1 or 2 more games than them. We still have not scratched 90 points. I think our highest tally was like, 89? Or something, so if it ends up being the case that we're going to have to get at like almost like 100 points next season, I don't know. I don't see it for us. Johnny says, I do see how we have the best defense. Until we figure out how to beat the low blocks, it doesn't matter if we have the best defense because we'll still be vulnerable on counterattacks. And, we've had that problem for multiple seasons now, and he still hasn't been able to overcome it. Not signing someone will cause our current players to reevaluate their futures. This current City is even better than Real's current Galacticos on paper. It is on paper, and things don't play out on paper. So maybe it's just the case that, it looks so good on paper, but it doesn't work out the way that we think it is. And that's what I'm kind of hoping. But then you still have Liverpool to contend with. And they're buying a top 1% player to put in a team that was already better than us last season, so to me, it's a lot of it is about Mikel, and can he coach this team? Because I've never seen like people discount the manager so much. Like he's so good that it's just about getting him the best players. And I'm just like, I think he's gonna have to improve quite a bit as well. He is a part of it. You know, Slot made that Liverpool side just 5% better, and that was enough for them to win the league. Is he gonna make us that 5% better to make sure that we get over the line? He has 4 opportunities to win a trophy next season. He has to win at least one of them, and for a lot of people, it has to be the Champions League or the Premier League. That's gonna be really hard for him to do, even with a striker and a left wing, you know? Like, you have to assume that, like, you it's gonna be much harder next season, you know? Um, I agree with you, Jess. We need that 5%. Yes, we haven't been the best team in a full season. We never was. Yeah, Mikel needs to trust and rotate and play with the handbrakes off. I feel like that's a part of it. I definitely feel like that's a part of it. Like, we really need to, like, be able to utilize the squad a lot more, but, you know, he's struggled to do that, so I don't know. You know, I really don't know if it's just gonna be just get him 2 players up front and it's just gonna solve everything, especially, you know, one of those players is probably gonna be a young player. You know, it's gonna be a Sesko. He's gonna have to find a way to get this team to 90 points, keep them in all 4 competitions to the very end, maybe at least 2 or 3 of them, and also develop a young striker. You know, that's a lot to ask for when he hasn't had to do any of that stuff before, you know? So, um, yeah, I just it's never Mikel needs to improve or, you know, or he needs to improve this or that. It's just get him the players and it'll just happen, and I'm like, all right, sure," you know? Let's see. And Rodri is back, plus they have Diaz, Ake, Gavardiol, Akanji still, who are top tier. Yeah, I feel like the one thing that I feel like we do have, like somebody mentioned before, is the defense. That gives us the ability to be in a title race even when we're not great up front. Because we don't have to score a lot of goals most of the time to make sure that we don't lose, because we don't lose a lot of games. But it's the scoring goals, it's when we score, and it's being able to play multiple competitions at a high level. This past season, you know, we're good in the Champions League to a certain extent, but we fell away in the league. Next season, I think the I don't know what you got how you guys feel, but I feel like the expectation is that we're gonna, you know, get to the Champions League semifinal at the very least, and also be in a title race until the final. If we don't win it, we need to be in it until the final day. You know, that's much different than what we've had to do like now. The first season where we challenged, where I think we hit 85 points, maybe. I think we hit 85 points. We were in Europa League and we went out sad against Sporting in like the quarters. Um, so it's a lot. Taku says the defense just guarantees you at least a draw in most games. That's what last season taught me. You're right. It does. It guarantees you the draw. When we saw how poor we were in front of goal in some circumstances, especially I feel like it showed up a lot when we needed a goal to equalize, we needed a goal to put the game out of sight, or we needed a goal to push on and win, and we couldn't get those, you know? So, um, yeah, it just depend like, it really, you know, it can't just be Declan Rice pushing for these goals. Like, we need to feel confident that we're gonna score goals, and I would love, like, the attitude from 2022, 2023 to come back, that it didn't matter whether we were pushing for a winner late or we were pushing for an equalizer or we were trying to get the second goal, we always felt like we could win, and I feel like that essence needs to come back with the defense. So, that's not just about buying 2 players, that's also about Mikel taking the handbrake off. I'm not sure I agree for the league. A strong defense might get us deep UCL run, but in the league, we need to score. 2 draws is worse than a win and a loss. Yeah, I mean, but I still feel like our defense is pretty much the only reason why we didn't fully fall out of we still were far and clear the best team, like best defensive team in the league by like 9 goals or something like that. You know, so I do think our defense kept us in it and at least guarantees you a baseline of a title, right? A title race, or keeps you it keeps you in the top 4 at the very least. Without that defense and with a poor attack, like, I don't think you could have one or the other. Like, maybe if you have a really good attack, but a bad defense, you could still be in the top 4, but our defense definitely was the reason why we stayed in, so Big J says, "The fact that Gyokeres and Sesko are the best we can go for tells you everything you need to know about the club. The fact that signing Isak is impossible is astounding to me." But why? So this is where I kind of disagree with. I kind of disagree with this idea that, you know, I guess maybe if we were like back in the day, we'd be able to poach another top 4 team's best or another Champions League team's best player, but did we ever really do that? I'm trying to, even under, like, when we were, like, invincibles, like, I know, like, Spurs were what they were, and we took Sol Campbell on a free. We didn't go to Spurs and spend 100 million on him. We got him on a free, and it was good. I don't really remember because Spurs were not considered like anything special back then. But Newcastle are an up and coming juggernaut, and he's just not on the market. I don't see that as like a we should be able to go to Newcastle and just take him, because it's not even like Real Madrid can just come to us and we're smaller than them and take Saliba. He's just not available. So does that mean that Real Madrid are a small team because they can't walk up to Arsenal and snatch Saliba out from underneath our nose? Like, I don't really agree with that. I just think the market is what it is. And, Isak is not on the market. So, like, I don't really agree with that, Jay says, same logic as Liverpool saying not being able to sign Saka is a disgrace. Newcastle also believe they can overtake an Arsenal in the next few years, which they have the money to do what City are. The only reason why they can't escalate it as quickly is now there's kind of things in place that weren't there when Chelsea originally started their madness and when City originally started their madness. Eventually, they'll be able to get there because there's only so much that PSR could do. But eventually they will get there, and the teams with money tend to be good. That's just the reality. What team do we know of that has a lot of money or is state backed and is not really, really good? So the assumption is that Newcastle will at some point overtake Arsenal because we're just financially, we won't be able to compete with them. And we also don't have ambitious owners, and that makes it worse. Chai says, I feel like if City were in our position in terms of needing a striker and they wanted Isak, they would get him. They were in our position, weren't they? They were in our position and they wanted Kane and they couldn't get him. They were literally in our position. They needed a striker and they wanted Kane and they couldn't get him. So they ended up spending that money, that 100 million that they went up there to Spurs. Remember, Kane had a gentleman's agreement and they couldn't agree because Levy didn't want to sell him. So when a player's not available, he's not available. Wasn't Kane the Isak back then? The best striker outside of like a top side? They went up there with 100 million, then they got turned back. And then they ended up with Grealish. So no. I feel like that's, and Kane to me is a much more highly more highly touted player than even Isak is. So no, I don't think so. I disagree. Mark says, I feel like we should try to sign the striker that complements our best player, Saka, best. Saka should be our top scorer year in and year out, just like Salah. I feel like so my feeling on this is more, I want Saka to have the type of striker that's going to bring his assist numbers up, because when I think of Saka, I think he's improved himself and like he's rounded out his game to be more of a goal scorer, but I think he's more of a natural playmaker, somebody that puts in really good deliveries, knows how to put the ball in positions for the striker to get to it. I actually think he has a really good relationship with Kane. With England, I think they play well together, and Saka puts the ball in dangerous areas for Kane, but he also scores goals. So I'm actually looking for a striker that's going to be there at the front post when he puts those balls across the box, somebody that's going to get those whipped in crosses that our players continuously miss, people that are going to put the ball in the back of the net when he hits those corners. I actually think I'm more looking at a striker that's going to make him the top assister in the world, not necessarily that's going to put him into positions to score. I think Saka is more useful as a creator for us for a good striker than him being being the actual goal scorer, if that makes sense. So I think I agree with you in terms of bringing in a striker that works with Saka, but I actually think it's the opposite. I think Saka could end up racking up an obscene amount of assists with the right striker. John says, I think Saka models his game off of Salah. Unpopular opinion, I don't think Saka is ever going to be able to score the amount of goals that Salah does. I think Salah is essentially Liverpool's striker, and so they can go out there and get a striker that's not a natural goal scorer, more of a facilitator, because they know Salah is going to get like 30 goals a season. I don't think Saka's ever going to be able to do that. I actually think we should lean more into his playmaking, but I feel like that's an unpopular opinion. A lot of people, I think, do view him as our Salah. I don't. I think we need to be more like Barcelona in the way that we build our attack and less like Liverpool. Salah is kind of like a freak of nature. Uh, Saka at 23 is miles ahead of Salah at the same age. Saka is a playmaker. Believe as he ages, he will play a more central role. Saka does not model his game after no Salah. Stop it. Let's see. But yeah, in terms of Gyokeres, there's now because I wanted to actually touch on this as well, that um there's actually an agreement between him and Sporting now about the fee. So remember, over the last couple of days, it's been quite literally like a battle between Sporting, Gyokeres' agent, and Gyokeres, and it's been quite difficult to see, I can't lie. But Sporting have now given Victor Gyokeres the assurance that he'll be allowed to leave in the summer for 60 million to 70 million euros. And so that is very cheap, very affordable, and something that, they had originally agreed on for the gentleman's agreement that they tried to renege on because all of a sudden they felt like they could get some sort of bid going on, like a bidding war. And so that's good for Arsenal for two different reasons. One, because it gives us leverage in the Sesko negotiations. We could literally just pivot away from you and go get somebody that, is more ready made for a smaller price, or, and then they'll come down on their fee. Or we quite literally could pivot to Gyokeres and get a good striker for about 60 million pounds, 58 million pounds, something around there. And so that is a good thing for us, that agreement between Gyokeres and Sporting. Honoring their gentleman's agreement will never happen. I don't know why players still go for the okey doke, but that helps us in multiple ways. So there's no reason why this shouldn't get done next week, or we shouldn't have like real movements on Sesko and or Gyokeres next week. None like Sporting, RB Leipzig, and Arsenal. None of us are in the Club World Cup. We know that agents and clubs can talk to each other whether the window is open or not. We don't need to pretend like the window is shut, so now we can't do anything. Yes, we can. And this is actually a really good opportunity to start doing things because City and Chelsea can't get in our way, and they'll be in, especially Chelsea, so we should be trying to make as many moves as we possibly can while they're in those tournaments so that we can get our shit done, you know? So we should be moving on. Will you be happy if we sign Hato? Yeah, of course. Good player. Good player, good players always make you better, whether I feel like it should be a priority or not. I really like Hato. It's not that I don't like him. I just feel like, I want to see movement on attackers. Hato is just, a very good, like, I don't want to call him generational, but he's a really good young player. So, yeah, of course, I would be happy if we signed him. Now, that needs to impact Miles Lewis Skelly, and I'm going to expect Lewis Skelly to be playing in midfield. And both of I think the odd thing about this whole link is that I don't necessarily see how it works for Hato, because finding another 18-year-old for the left wing or left back position when both of you guys are going to be trying to fight for a spot in your national team. Neither one of them, I think, I mean, I would imagine that, like, realistically, they should both be kind of like set in stone based on the talent that's in both sides. But, you still have to feel like you're going to fight for that spot. And so two 18-year-olds going up against each other would worry me. So he walks into Chelsea's defense. I don't know if he necessarily walks into ours all the time. So we'll see how that develops. But we're also linked to this Alexandro Ribeiro. He's a left-sided center back and right-sided center back, 6'3" at Lille, and he's 25 years old. He's been linked to us today. And I'm like, isn't it, I mean, what is more important? Is the left back more important, or is center back more important? Now, I mean, just push me right off the damn cliff if we get a center back and Hato and do not get a left back, or a left wing, sorry. We're being linked to a shit ton of defenders, but not really enough wingers for my liking. But, I haven't watched a lot of this kid, but listen, Brazilian center back that plays for Lille, where have I seen this before? I think the best place to get defenders, oddly enough, is Ligue 1. I think it's the best place to get center backs and DMs, so it's a physical league, and it usually works out, so let's see how that develops. But I don't know how much they would want, but cool little 25 mil, knock that out, be done with the defense, move on, you know, why not? But we need somebody, if we're going to get somebody to play center back, it needs to be somebody that can be on the right, because we have Calafiori and Kivior right now, and they both can play on the left. So, yeah, Kivior should be sold. What Hato? Are you people demented? If we sign Hato, we need to sell Calafiori, MLS, or Kivior 100%. No. So Nico or Rodrygo, who do we get as a winger? There's plenty of options. Will Arsenal actually go for them? I don't know. They tend to have an option, and then if they don't get that player, they just freeze, like I do when my internet is bad. Taku says, to me, center back is needed, in my opinion, not massively important, but somewhat important. They're needed. Like, I feel like when I say that I don't care about these things, I think people are like, are you dumb, Jess? We need these. But I just feel like Arsenal are always in a position where they need something, and it should be the priority, because we need starters in that position, right? Like, essentially, if we could get starters in two positions, it would be left wing and a striker. And then the backup positions are more like, the number 2 goalkeeper or the center back, and I'm just thinking in terms of priority, if we do end up on missing out on something because we prioritize other things, I'd rather us miss out on the defender rather than the attacker. In an ideal world, we should be able to get everything, especially because you didn't do anything last summer. You didn't do anything last summer. You brought in Marino, you brought in Calafiori, you sold a bunch of players, and you brought in Raheem Sterling. So you made money last summer, so there shouldn't be a situation where we miss out on anything. But if we're prioritizing the defense now, because what tends to happen is, well, we can't get our number 1 option in left wing, so let's just not get it, and let's just spend bigger in defense. That can't happen. You need to make sure that some part of that money gets used for a second attacker, or I'm crashing the fuck out. There's just no way. But yeah, if we get a little, center back action, a little whatever this guy's name is, fine. I'm sure he's fine. I'm sure he's good. I don't really give a fuck. But don't even think to start that season talking about some, oh, well, we don't really need to get a left wing because Martinelli looked good in preseason. Seppuku. I should like I will be like I won't be here. Um so yeah, Hato or Kivior Jess, does it mean Kivior is leaving then? I mean, I don't know what it means, to be honest. I don't know who they're anticipating letting go. I think Zinchenko, we know for sure, is the only player that's in this squad right now that we know for sure is most likely not going to be here. But it's still very much so up in the air what they're going to do with Kivior, and it's still to me in the air what they're going to do at left wing. You know, are they going to, you know, basically like just cave and just stick with Trossard and Martinelli, or are they going to do the bold thing and move one of them on and go bring in somebody better? We need left wing and striker, period. Then talk to me about other signings. Unless Kivior leaves, the link doesn't work. John says, I just pray that Rodrygo agrees to leave. I think Madrid will prioritize Mbappe Vinny to succeed rather than Rodrygo. Just as important as who we sign, the current players we need to step up their development to the next level to have a chance of winning the league. Sometimes, just having, I just don't think there was much. I don't like this is going to say, I don't know how to say it without it sounding bad on the players, but I just don't feel like there was much incentive for them to go again last season, because they were clearly on the edges of injuries. They had just come back from the Euros, and I think just like us, they were expecting signings and there was nothing there. So they're tired from the Euros. They just got, had a disappointing season. Because I said this before, I think they really thought that they were going to win the league 2 seasons ago when they finished 2 points away. I think they genuinely felt they were going to win. Genuinely. I think with all their heart, they gave absolutely everything that they could. They didn't get it, but they gave everything that they could. And so they're disappointed, and they had played a lot of football. A lot of our players have played full 90s, for us for like 3-4 seasons now. The not the Declan Rices, but the Sakas, the Ben Whites, the Odegaards. And then you have players coming in like Rice, who have played a lot of minutes for West Ham. They play the Euros and then they come straight back in and they have to start doing, title race again. And there's no new players. That had to be so fucking disappointing, and I just don't know if they had enough to get up for the next, they didn't have it. And so new signings do just as much, they do more for the players than they do for us. We really get up for new signings. It breathes new life into a new season, but it's even bigger for the players because not only is it breathing new life into their season, but it's lighting a fire under some of their asses because some of them are going to actually have to fight for their positions now. So not getting new players was like set you up for failure. That third time trying to go up for a Premier League is really difficult when there's no new players coming in and you have the same problems that you did the season prior. I'm sorry, but I know they love each other and I know they believe in Havertz and all that. Like they love each other and believe in each other more than like we do. But I know in that group, that WhatsApp group, before they added Sterling and shit to that, they were like, what the fuck? I just know it. I just know it. Somebody was asking the question, are we signing anybody? Or, like what's going on? Because you need something to get up for. Who the Brazilian defender from Lille linked to Arsenal? His name is I was gonna call him Christian Mascara, but that's the other guy, isn't it? Because we've been linked to several. We've been linked to like a center back at Sevilla, right? Named Christian Mosquera, and then we are also linked to this guy from Lille. He's 25 years old, Brazilian center back, plays right center back, left center back. Aggressive, looks good. His name is Alexandro. And Renato, somebody that, follows the Brazilian national team, said he had his debut for the Brazilian national team this week and everyone raved about him. One of the reasons they've had 2 clean sheets in 2 games, very solid defender, hard to dribble past. He's fantastic. Fantastic story of life too, was playing in Portugal's third league or third tier not too long ago. So Yeah, he's somebody that we're looking at. Scouts were at the Neo Quimica Arena to watch Brazil's match against Paraguay. Among the players observed was Alexandro. Well, you know, get it done. Like, just get someone the fuck. Like, I mean, I don't know if it's true or not, because I don't believe absolutely everything, but if our like whole thing with Berta is to lay all the deals out, like get them all like almost done and then pick and then fire, I'm not believing that shit, man. I'm not believing that shit. That don't sound smart. That doesn't sound smart to me. Um yeah, that doesn't sound smart to me. They were like, you know, this is just the Berta way. Listen, I want to believe in the Berta era just as much, but does anybody else operate like that? City doesn't operate like that. Liverpool doesn't operate like that. Chelsea doesn't operate like that. Who else gets all the deals kind of like lined up and then fires? Like, bruh, I'm not believing that shit. That sounds like Edu. You know, the fuck? Alexandro played against the Ecuador team and had no fit natural forwards and got rave reviews. No shit, Sherlock. Um, let's see. City does that. I mean, then how do they operate so quickly? If City operates the way that we operate under Berta, then how do they have 4 deals done and we have, well, 1 essentially? Because Zubamendi was done before Berta even got here. I'm not listening to this Berta way. Just do it the way that everyone else does it. Get someone. You know, honestly, skip me on this Alexandro guy. The supposed bird away is slow. How City get who they want and for low fees must be something dodgy happening. I don't think it's dodgy, you guys. I think the reason why Arsenal have to always negotiate so hard and go back and forth and like really haggle over the pennies is because City, I think, feel like they have the cash on hand. So if you're a club, the most valuable thing you can get is a release clause because that means that somebody's giving you all the money up front. You don't have these staggered payments. You don't have 10 million coming in every summer. You have the whole money so you can reinvest that money quickly right away, right? And so I don't think City are paying release clauses, but they're paying more up front. And so when you pay more up front, it's just like regular life. You know how when you're buying things, if you pay more up front, you don't have to pay as much interest. You know, when you break things down, you pay with Klarna or a credit card, you have interest or whatever because you're breaking that payment down. That's essentially what happens to Arsenal. City pay more up front, so clubs are willing to give them a lower fee overall because they know that they can utilize that money right away. But with Arsenal, you have to pay like 10 million more. And then we want to haggle that down because they want to offer the clubs like, oh, we'll do it in 8 payments, right? And so it's not about doing anything dodgy. It's just when you have the money on hand, which comes because you sell so much, because they sell so many of their youngsters for good money, you know, they're a well-run club, they can offer more upfront. Chelsea also offers more upfront. You know, that's how they get those deals done. But we like to operate in this like rob Peter to pay Paul. We want to be able to we want to spread out the payments, but then also get the same deal that City is getting, and that's not how it works. So that's why we have to go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, you know? Um, and they pay agent fees. They also pay the agent fees, a lot higher agent fees to get it done, but that also comes with having the money on hand, and being able to spend more quicker. 3 top tier players, just under 150 million. Plus, they already reinforced back in January, thinking about the next season while we were busy flirting and with Sterling. And even with Zuby, we chose to pay more to ensure we can pay lots of installments. This is just stuff that I like I I'm not like a big numbers girl, but I think if you just read between the lines a little bit and like, you know, if you've been following the transfer windows and like this is a part of my job, so I kind of have to do these things, but you see the differences between how we operate and how other teams operate. I think it's very clear that Arsenal want to always have like a valuation. They want to go with the valuation, but they also don't want to spend a lot up front. And that's what pisses clubs off. They're like, oh, so you want to pay like not you don't want to pay what we want, but you also want to give us like less up front. And I think that's why clubs get frustrated with us, because I don't want to say it's disrespectful, but it's kind of like, you know. So I think we need to, but it's also if we have more money up front and we could just give them a bigger chunk up front, this wouldn't be happening. But we can't do that because we never have enough. Johnny says, well-run club. They still don't have a Palmer after De Bruyne has left, although I prefer Shirky to be true. I mean, there's no way to refute the fact that City is a well-run club. There's just no way to refute it. Saying, well, they don't have a De Bruyne replacement. Well, gotcha. They have Turkey now. I mean, they've had one bad season, and instead of hemming and hawing over not getting worse, they turned right around and got Turkey. They basically they got Reinders, Turkey, um, and Ait Nuri for the same amount that Liverpool paid for Wirtz. They got they got 4 deals done before they went to the Club World Cup. Done, here we go, announcement in training. All of their players are in training on their way to the Club World Cup. They spent money in Jan. They reinforced the team. And not only that, it's not even just about what they're doing in this window. There's no way that a club that's won so many Premier Leagues is not well run. They are well run, and the thing is, it's a difference between, how they got there and whether or not they're well run are two completely different things. They've maybe done some strange things to get to where they are, to be able to accelerate and be so good so quick, but you still could be poorly run even if you're kind of like fraudulent. A good example of that is PSG. PSG and City are both oil-based clubs. They're both owned by nation states, but PSG have been significantly less successful in terms of the level of competition they have to face in their league and what they've gotten in return. City actually play in a really competitive league and have basically dominated us and made us into a farmers league, while PSG have kind of struggled a little bit. They still win their league, but they should have won a Champions League by now. City won a Champions League before PSG, so I don't think that you could still be poorly run and be kind of shady, so they're a well-run club. To me, there's no kind of way to refute it or, yeah. PSG did win this Champions League, but they just won it, and they've been trying to win it for 18 years now. This is what I'm saying. PSG have had a dominion over their league for a long time, but it's not the same as the Premier League. It's been called a farmers league for a reason. But City, they came into a league that had giants. No, who was the other giant in the French league? Marseille, maybe, but they've come into a league that already had giants like Chelsea and Man United and Liverpool, and have completely dominated it into the point where people are calling us a farmers league, and they've been owned by a nation state a lot, not as long as PSG, and they won a Champions League before PSG did. Do you see what I'm saying? They're way more successful than PSG have been, but they've done everything in a shorter period of time. It's just wild to me how people are not seeing that. Theo says City built strong foundations before the PSR era. They were spending like crazy around 2010. It's hard for PSG to convince stars to join League. Just rank the brand of football you watch from the leagues in Europe, England. The brand of football, rank it. Who has the best football? I don't know. I mean, I really like La Liga, but I know people don't like La Liga. I like La Liga. I think it's a tactical and technical league. So I would say like La Liga, Premier League, Bundesliga, French league, Serie A in terms of brand of football. Um, I just don't think any of the Serie A teams, even if they're have a pretty competitive league, there's not anybody that I like want to watch because their football is so good. Um, So, and the Premier League can also put out some bad football, but it's easier to find better football in that league. The Bundesliga has entertaining football, but poor defensive. They're not really a tactical league. They're more of like a runner league. I don't know. And then the French league is hard for me to find anyway because I'm not paying for that shit. And outside of like PSG, maybe Monaco, Marseille, or any of the other teams playing good football. I don't know. So I don't watch that league enough, but I like La Liga. I'm not gonna lie. So, um, but yeah, that's pretty much it. But either way, City is well run, and we probably won't ever be able to really go bar for bar with them because they're just playing with a different deck of cards. But we definitely could be more efficient, I feel, and can maybe run more similarly to Liverpool, which they don't really have drawn out sagas like us. They, make sure that they buy the types of players that they need. It's very rare that they have big gaping holes in their team and they just do not fill it ever. So yeah, I feel like we could be better. But that also doesn't mean that we're terrible. We're just could improve for sure. um Atalanta, Como, Roma, Napoli play good football. To you they do. To me, it's not the most entertaining league, and the brand of football is not my favorite. That being said, I'm not saying that I'm not entertained. He said brand of football. I just tend to maybe like the Spanish style football a little bit more than Serie A. Bundesliga is just entertaining, and I feel like, BVB and Leverkusen and Bayern, like all of those teams do play good football. So don't hate me for saying it. If you love Serie A, that's fine. And you like the football that these teams play, that's great. I'm not saying that they don't play good football. I'm just saying the brand of football that makes my eye like I'm like, yeah, is probably La Liga. Um I like that league. Prem is the least enjoyable league to me now. Last season, the overall standard was difficult to watch when you consider all the money. I'm thinking like with the Prem, the hard reset of a lot of these teams not playing and their players not playing. Because two things happened last summer is there wasn't a lot of movement in the market, and also everybody was playing in the Euros for the most part. So you had a lot of the bigger teams getting a lot of injuries, and I think that impacted things. And then you had the influx of some of these teams. So I actually think, unpopular opinion, I think the standard of the football will go up next season for the Prem. I think there's top players from top leagues coming to this league, and that's going to help. Not having like a good KDB hurts the league. So bringing in a Wirtz and a Turkey and a Reinders, like these types of players, is going to help the overall standard of the league. And I don't actually think that the mid-table teams played bad football. I think the top teams played bad football. I think for the most part, outside of those bottom three, there were times where you would watch the Brentfords, the Bournemouths, the Fulhams play good football, not consistently, but, good enough where some of their games were fun to watch. The Brightons, the problem was Tottenham and Man United were fucking terrible. And Man City also struggled. You know what I mean? So I think those teams, like the better teams, being able to bring in players this summer, bringing in top players that are good creative players and stuff like that is going to help. A good City, a good Tottenham, a good Man United, and also Arsenal and Chelsea and Liverpool is going to help the league. But I think, unfortunately, there were a lot of good performances from mid-table teams that were overshadowed because people were mostly disappointed that the top teams didn't play well. So I think it's more that because I did enjoy watching games from Brentford, games from Bournemouth. I did watch, especially at the beginning with Bournemouth. I thought they were really good, but the better teams were really bad. So I hear it. Also, refereeing decisions, the length of VAR checks, the amount of red cards, that kind of stuff does impact people's like taste for the game. And you just don't see that in other leagues. You really don't. You watch Serie A, you watch Bundesliga, you watch La Liga. None of those leagues have the same level of like impact from the referees. And so that's on them. That's on them. To me, that's 100% on them. They have made the refereeing fiasco such a big part of the drama that of the Premier League that it takes away from the actual players and how they're playing being the main focus, and that's on the Prem. They're the only league that has this problem. No other league has this problem. So yeah, I think they fucked themselves, to be honest. My only purpose for watching football last season was UCL. When does the fixture list come out? I don't know, Shamaria, but I'll tell you this for free that our first game of the season is going to be on Friday. On the first day of this, like we're going to be the first game on Friday under the lights against Sunderland away from home. I can tell you that for free because one thing that they're going to try to do is get their Brentford moment. Best in belief. I mean, last season was probably the first time in 2 seasons that we didn't play a team coming up. So, or no, did we? No, we didn't. But I feel like they're gonna wanna get their Brentford away. They're gonna get us with the Sunderland. We're going to the Stadium of Light. Like, as soon as they made it up, I was like, "That is gonna be our first game of the season." Giving us a City is not gonna give them what they need. Giving us Man United is not gonna give them what they need. But Arsenal potentially not being ready for the season and going up to Sunderland up north where we struggle with all northern sides, no matter who it is. I can tell you that for free. Blaze says, "Till today, I don't understand Declan Rice red cards versus Brighton, Trossard versus City, and MLS versus Wolves away." Well, also, we need to make sure that people know for sure that, like, Gabriel, in particular, he's somebody that I think about with this, do not speak to the ref. Only the captain speak to the ref because this new emphasis on anybody outside of the captain speaking to the ref is only going to impact us. Everybody else will be able to do it. It's going to be fine, but it's not going to be fine for us. So we usually don't have a problem with this, but I'm just thinking like ahead of time instead of testing it and then being like, why doesn't everybody else get impacted by this or there's no consequence for anybody else. We should just make sure we don't do it because trust and believe they're going to have that shit up there. Like I prefer we start with all the big games being away. Like last season, it was brutal. John says, the Premier League love a narrative at our expense. Laughing my ass off. No, it's not just we play Chelsea at home first game of the season. It's rigged and they will try to rid us of the first 10 games again. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if our oh shit, really? So in 5 days. Wow, okay. Just a harmless potato says 9 a.m. British Standard Time on Wednesday, June 18th. Well, I'm not looking forward to that. Listen, I feel like if I believed in Arsenal, which I don't, but if I did, I would want us to get Chelsea and City early in the first 10 games because they will have just come back from the Club World Cup and maybe not be fully up for it, playing all that football. But because I don't trust Arsenal, I would not trust them not to bottle it. So, but I feel like what I want is just like a normal schedule where it's not front loaded with hard teams and, also at the back end of the season flooded with hard fixtures. I would love for it to be spread out in normal like other people's are, but we tend to either get front loaded or get everybody at the back end of the season or both, so I would just like for it to be a little bit more. I think idealistically, you'd want most of your hard games to be done before March or, yeah, basically like, maybe you want your harder games to end or start around January, February, March, and then towards the end of the season, you have an easier run in so that when you're at your best, you can. I feel like we're at our best. We should be at our best around January, February, March. Um, and then if you play, get the run in, and it's like I think Liverpool had a run in like this season where they basically didn't play anybody after March. Like it was very easy. I would love that. I'd love for after Christmas for our games to be hard, and then when we get to the run in, it's like more of the easier games, but it won't be like that. We always get the harder games right at the end, so it won't be like that. Very exciting summer for Arsenal and Kunku on loan and CB play as fullback. Arteta's a genius. Remember when we had that toughest run in the 23-24 season? It always kind of happens like that, but also we have to make sure that there is only like 3 or 4 games that we really don't want to play at the end of the season. At this stage, we have so many ops and so many teams that we struggle to beat that it feels like almost like half of the teams are teams that you don't want to play at the end. It quite literally just needs to be like, okay, when are we playing, City and Liverpool? But right now it's City, Liverpool, Chelsea, United, Tottenham, also Newcastle, Villa, and whoever else we picked up this season as an op. I just feel like we need to make sure that more games are kind of like standard, like they were 2 seasons ago, rather than we have all these ops. Like I'm not trying to hear about West Ham being a bogey team or, are we going to be able to beat Brighton? I'm not trying to hear that shit. You know, they played Chelsea. Oh yeah, they didn't play anybody, right? You are just they didn't like at the back end of the season. It's like once they got past that one little section, they weren't dropping any points after that. And I would love for that to be kind of like how I actually would prefer to play almost all of our difficult games January, February, March, but we'll see. El Capri says, what do you think about Antonio Nusa? I see we're linked with him. I've seen like in the nose linking us to him, so I won't get too excited about the links. But at this stage, as much as he's not my favorite choice, and I still think I don't want to call him raw, but I would say like inexperienced. There's no like, would I take him instead of getting nothing? Yes, of course. Like a talented young winger when what we have is what we have. Yes, I would. I like Nusa. I think he's very talented. He's just young and probably like 1 year away from the big move outside of Leipzig, but get him a year early. Why not? There is no excuse not to get an attacker on the left. Foxy is saying what I'm saying. He's probably like 1 year away, but I'd rather get him than not. The most important thing is to play better and win during Boxing Day. Also, be more consistent at the end of season if we will be in the title race. Liverpool had the easiest. Oh no, I think I read that. Oh no, Liverpool had the easiest, then City, then us, and we almost clinched the title if it weren't Arteta tweaking the squad. I think you mean in the 23-24 season where we just had to not like lose to Aston Villa. That's what I'm saying. Like Aston Villa can't be a bogey team this season. It's just getting old now. How many bogey teams do we need to have? It shouldn't be like this. The easier fixtures at the beginning of last season helped Liverpool, gave them momentum into the tougher fixtures. Would love that. I mean, yeah, I think I can't really remember. Because at the beginning of this season, we went straight to the Etihad, essentially. We played like Wolves and Brighton, and then I think we went to the Etihad like right after that, or maybe a game or so after that. I feel like we were very much so like front loaded, and then at the back end we had hard games. So, but really, to be honest, you guys, if we have a good team and we're up for it, shouldn't really matter that much, because ultimately the job is still the same. At the beginning of the season or every year, if you want to win the league, in my opinion, you have to beat all the small teams home and away. And then when you come up against the top 6 people, you want to at least win at home, but against your title contenders, like you want to win home and away actually against top 6. And then the teams that you're fighting up against in the title race, you need to win at home. So essentially what that means is you have to not, the only teams that you can possibly lose to on paper right now is Liverpool away and City away. Everything else has to be a win. Beat them at home, or at least don't lose to them at home. At least don't lose to them at home. And then you need to beat Spurs home and away. You need to beat Man United home and away. You need to beat Chelsea home and away. You need to beat Aston Villa home and away. You need to beat Newcastle home and away. And you need to beat all of the small teams home and away. That is what City is going to require. They just make it so difficult where dropping any sort of points is like the end of the day. So yeah, we'll need to be able to beat all of those teams, home and away. Home and away. Like Crystal Palace should not be up for discussion. Home and away. Fulham, home and away, So we need to. John says, surprisingly, I think our best midfield was with Jorginho in it. I think that's an unpopular opinion, but I actually agree with that. I think the best we've seen our midfield function since 22-23 has been with Jorginho. There's always felt like there's something missing with when we play Odegaard, Rice, and Partey. And it's not because those players are not good. It's because I just feel like they don't really mesh together. Mostly when I say they, I mean Rice and Partey. They're really good players individually, but when it comes to like actually doing things together, there's something missing, so yeah. Newcastle away, then Liverpool at home. It actually can't get much harder than that Liverpool game. We're finished 3rd next season and won't be in the title race for long. I'd rather our games be spread out, but everyone plays everyone, so we just have to do our job, which is true. Anchor says we must have one Rodrygo, Williams, or Leao next season. Would be of higher quality. Nagelsmann is on fraud watch after the Germany performance, but I would still give him a chance over Arteta. Can't blame the fixtures. We should have won more games. Didn't Nusa failed his medical test to join Brentford? I think he did. Who said Rodrygo is off? Missed that. There are reports from Brazil saying that Alonso doesn't want to sell Rodrygo. So we have to wait for the bigger guns, the Fabrizios and the Ornsteins to maybe confirm it. But, there is a pretty big possibility that he's going to stay there, and we discussed that earlier on in the stream, that I feel like Arsenal fans are being a little bit harsh on Rodrygo by having this whole like narrative that he just has to leave. Like, what do you mean you're not a starter? And kind of like what I was saying about PSG and about, Barcelona, it's good players are okay with being at teams and not being necessarily a starter if they know they're going to win stuff. And if this is your dream club, which most players, especially players from like Latin backgrounds or South American backgrounds, they want to end up final destination is Real Madrid or Barcelona. And so if they're not being kicked out, it's going to be them making the decision. And it's hard. A new manager is coming. If this was Ancelotti, it might be different for Rodrygo because he knows what his fate is. You're on the right, but Alonso is probably selling him dreams, because for Alonso, it's important to have as much quality because at Real Madrid, you're not for long if you don't perform, so Alonso has a lot of pressure on him. He needs to have as much quality as he possibly can. He'd rather have Rodrygo on the bench than not, so if I'm him, I'm selling him dreams. I'm saying I have this whole, plan worked out where you're going to play this and you're going to get more time in your position, blah, blah, blah. We're going to work on it. Just give me a year, like blah, blah, blah. And maybe in Rodrygo's mind, he's like, what's one more year? Because I guarantee that even if Rodrygo doesn't leave this summer, there'll still be people wanting him next summer if it doesn't work out. So I think people are being a little bit harsh on Rodrygo when they're like, well, he should just go. He's not starting in his main position. He's at his final destination, guys, so, and we're a club that, if he were to try to come to us, we would expect a completely different thing from him. We're not expecting you to be, you don't have a Vinny or Mbappe. You become our Vinny and Mbappe. And maybe he doesn't want that role. Maybe he needs to seek within himself if he wants to be, like I said, do you want to be Lucas Vasquez or do you want to be Alexis Sanchez? Alexis Sanchez was not happy being just a piece of a group. He wanted to be the star. And that's technically what we need as well. We need a star, so he needs to make that decision. I don't think that it's an easy decision to be made. I would not begrudge him for staying. I just think it's a more difficult conversation than just, well, you're not starting, so why would you go? Why would you stay? You're gonna win shit. You're at the best club, best legacy club that you can possibly be at, and Alonso's probably selling you dreams. I wonder how Ozil left Madrid for us. He was forced out. I think Ancelotti went there and said, I don't want him. And so he was forced out. That's the only reason why he ended up with us. He was like a market opportunity. And we ended up being, I think Ozil respected Arsene and the style that we played because he was very much so like a child of Wenger in himself, so he wanted to play for Arsenal. And Arteta has the gift when it comes to being able to attract defenders to Arsenal. But does he have the ability to attract attackers? That's what we're going to find this summer because he can convince Calafiori to come. He can convince Timber to come. I wouldn't be surprised if he could convince Hato to come. But when he first talked to Sesko, he said, well, you're not going to start or get playing time because Kai Havertz. And that's not what you want to hear, So, yeah, so there you go. I thought Madrid had to sell Ozil because they bought Bale for 100 million. Either way, he was forced out. You don't have to, it's like if a manager comes in or the club tells you that we need to move you on, you're being forced out. Rodrygo's not being forced out. But I thought it was, the new coach was not particularly into Ozil because we know he has a specific personality. So, with years of insufficient funding in the forward line, we cannot get caught up on Rodrygo only. I sincerely hope we have at least 3 viable options, including Rodrygo. So there's 1,500 of you guys watching on all platforms. Make sure you guys are liking, subscribing, voting on the poll. But equally, I want to know in the chat, who are your top 3 options for the left wing position if Rodrygo and Williams are not available to you? I want to know what you guys think because we'll be able to come up with a shit ton of answers. I'm telling you right now, because there are so many players available, whether it's a Xavi Simons type of player or it's a, whatever, Lookman, there's plenty of players out there. So I want to know what you guys think. And what do you guys also think? Like, I know this is like not like super a priority, but I also want to know what you guys think about Ekitike as a backup signing if we can't get Sesko or Gyokeres. Because I saw that floating around yesterday and I couldn't get on because StreamYard was down. And I was like, I wonder what they think about this because I know some of you guys like him a lot. So yeah. And the only reason why I'm not really talking about Rodgers either, because I know that, he was somebody on the list like Gordon, Rodrygo, Nico Williams, Rodgers. Aston Villa are not selling him to us. They need money, but they're not going to sell their best player. If we need money, the first person we're not going to look at Saliba first or Saka. We're going to look to try to sell somebody else, so, let's see. Johnny says, you're not going to win shit when Barcelona allows it. Them, Rodri, Olmo, Rafinha, and somebody are scary as it gets. Arsenal need to change also. We need to see better football, more fluid, better performance next season. I don't want to see any more of the same style of play we had last season. It was awful and boring. And I don't think it was just because we had injuries either. I think we slowly were creeping into a stiffer style. From 2022, 2023, we saw a style that was like very weird. And then it progressed beyond that when the players just, I think when teams figured out that they just need to sit in the low block, it was like done for us. And then we started to really put a lot of emphasis on corners and throw-ins, which was Arteta doing the margins. Okay, well, the data shows that if we get this amount of corners, we're most likely to score this amount of goals. If we take this amount of touches in the box, we'll get this amount of goals. If we, make this amount of crosses, we're guaranteed for one of them to end in a goal. In playing percentage football instead of just playing a better brand of football that makes us more aggressive and more attacking. He wasn't going for that. He's way too in the weeds in the spreadsheets, and he needs to be a football man. There's too many lawyers and statisticians and guys. We need football men in this damn club. Leao, Rodgers, Eze. Is Gyokeres coming to Arsenal? Maybe. We have to see, but they're willing to sell him now for the amount that the agreement was, the handshake agreement was made for, which was 60 million euros to 70 million euros. So he's actually available for like 52 million pounds. So Arsenal very well can, turn their attention to him. Leao, Lookman, Simmons coming in with Sesko. See, there's options out there. There's options. Get me Samu Amarodian if we can't get Sesko or Gyokeres. Matoma, Lookman, and Leao. Rodrygo won't leave. We can sign Kudus, Semenyo, or Simmons. Just go for Rashford, Eze, Leao, Simmons, Lookman, Matoma, Alanga, Barcola. There's plenty of options out there. You guys are doing all the work for them, so they might as well hire us. Hire Shino's Arsenal community, and we'll get you the players that you need. Imagine us doing it. Pause. Not like that. But imagine us actually finding the players. Like, that would be fucking crazy. Hire us instead. We'd have a sick team. Let's see. Ekitike actually scored against Spurs. Ekitike to me is an aesthetics forward player, if I'm honest, which isn't like the worst thing, by the way. Like, I know that a lot of the reason why people love Gabriel Jesus is not because of the goals he scored, but the way that he, the way that he played and the way that his style of play influenced the way that Arsenal played in that season. And so I think when Arsenal look at players, or Arsenal players or fans are looking at players, they want to see somebody that almost emulates that fun style of play. And Ekitike definitely has the aesthetics behind him. My only concern with him is that he underperforms his XG quite a bit. And so if you get less chances, for Arsenal, you're not in the Bundesliga anymore. You're playing for a team that is a little stodgy, a team that, doesn't create maybe as much as maybe Frankfurt does. If you're getting less chances, are you going to be able to overperform your XG? I think the best strikers in the world overperform their XG, meaning they do a lot with a little. And he does stuff with a little, or he does stuff with a lot. He's somebody that, as harsh as people have been on Sesko, he has like 2 more goals than him. Where he beats out Sesko is definitely with all the other things, the passing, the creativity, the expected assists, somebody that's going to help facilitate, because he was helping facilitate for Marmoush. But do we need another facilitator when we have so many facilitators in the team, or do we need a goal scorer? And I think that's why Arsenal are not going for Ekitike, is because he really does give Gabriel Jesus vibes in the best and the worst ways, in my opinion. So for me, he's a no, because I feel like we have enough facilitators. We have Odegaard, we have Saka. We get a good left wing, we'll be fine. We need somebody who's going to put the ball in the back of the net. I'm looking for our Kane, our Lewandowski. I'm not really looking forward to another Jesus. Let's see. I fear Gyokeres would struggle at Arsenal. Sesko is more safer long term. I think Sesko is better. Are we still talking about football? Yes, we are. In my opinion, Ekitike has that Ronaldo gene. He can be very selfish, but doesn't get fazed by the run of play. He creates lots of chances for himself, something you need that in your team. Fair enough. He's flimsy. Imagine just the Berta job, we will be all over her. Oh my gosh. If I was like, I would probably be having like a nervous breakdown because I'd be on Twitter like, oh my God, they're saying Jessica out. Like they're saying I'm a fucking idiot. Like I'd be fucking freaking out so badly. I'd be like, get me out of here. Give me some, get me a drink and let me just sit here on, I don't know how they're calm. Like, I don't know how they're calm because I'd be like panicking. But I'll get you a left wing, that's for sure. Let's see, Ekatike. Hello. Let's see. So, yeah, he has like really, really good stats. In terms of like all the metrics are really, really good. The vanity metrics, the first ones that you see, the underlying ones are interesting as well, but he takes lots of touches in the attacking penalty area. His progressive passes received are very high. His take-ons are very high. His carries are very high. Not really like the passes, but they're there. And then his shot creating actions are really high. Like he does a lot of really good things. I just feel like he's more of a facilitator. Get him into a more difficult league. Let's see how it goes. But yeah, I really do like Sesko and Gyokeres. I'd rather one of those two. And Kerr says, I fear Gyokeres would struggle at Arsenal. Sesko is more of safer long term. Jess out. Exactly. You guys would be cussing me. You guys would be like, that she doesn't know shit. Get this American out of here. Like it'd be so wild. Jess out would be insane. Let's see. I'm not feeling Ekatike move. I generally don't care what my strikers look like as long as they smash the ball in the back of the net. That's another thing about Ekatike, that he's not a great ball striker, and that's not something that comes in stats. That's only something that you can watch. He's somebody that I fear like is going to take those weak pussy shots, and that's not. I can't watch that anymore. We have enough people that don't put their foot through the ball, So I like that Sesko strikes the ball well, and I like that Gyokeres strikes the ball well. That's just me, but whatever. Let's see. Imagine the hashtag with Jess out. It would be so crazy. Like I would hold a press conference. I would sit up there and be like, listen, I'm trying to do my job, but like, I don't know what to tell you guys. One thing I would not do is I would not leave you guys like hanging like that. If I couldn't do my job, I would come out there and say like I dropped the ball. Ain't no way I'd hide. There's no way. I'd be like, damn, like I fucked up. Just joined. You guys all freaked out about the Rodrygo move. Relax, Gooners. We're getting Rodrygo. Smash the likes, folks. Liverpool FC champions. Is he here to walk the dog? Is he here to walk the dog? Who? John says Leipzig are likely to lower Sesko's price more than Sporting. Yeah, I mean, I'm going to be honest. My gut's telling me that we're going to get Sesko. I just think all of this is a little bit more of just like negotiations. I think the stalling and the kind of like silence is more about everybody's at a standstill. Because we have a valuation for Sesko, and I've kind of explained this a couple of times, but just one more time, just for, people that are like, why don't we just pay up? It's, if you knew that you could have gotten him for last summer and the valuation for him last summer was 50 million, and now they're trying to quote you for 80 million, you are not going to just pay it. You're not going to just pay it. And you know why? Because you're not stupid. If Sesko was 50 million last summer, what the fuck has he done to be 30 million more pounds? He hasn't done anything. As good as he is, that valuation stinks for a player that last summer was 50 million. So they have a valuation for him. I think it's probably around like 65 million. And so Leipzig need to be serious and go down on their feet. And I get that they got him to sign a new deal and stay another year because they wanted to have a Holland-like transfer or, a 100 million pound transfer for this player, but they had a shit season. And so their shit season impacted his performances. And so there really isn't anything that would make people want to pay even more, so they need to come off of it. And so Arsenal do, to a certain extent, need to stick with their valuation or at least around it, because it's not good practice to, have a player that you could have gotten for 50 million and then turn around the next summer and they haven't changed clubs, they haven't particularly performed so much better, and then spend 30 million more pounds on that same player, and then also not take into consideration that it's going to impact other signings, because we're not made of money. There's a budget and there will be an end to that budget or end to that money. And so 30 million pounds extra is going to impact our ability to get other players in. So I think Arsenal are probably playing it a little bit cool. They're probably sitting there thinking eventually RB Leipzig will come down because they need to sell, because they finished outside of Champions League. Sesko is pretty much set on Arsenal. So it's basically a waiting game for them to blink first. And in the meantime, we're kind of just sitting here like, what the fuck is going on? But there are negotiations happening. There is no bid. And I kind of understand why there's no bid, because there hasn't been an agreement on what it would take to get him to the club, outside of this obscene number that doesn't make sense, you know? So I love Sesko now. There's a risk, of course, but there's a risk with anyone. I never thought he's that good, but people analyzing him draw a lot of awesome qualities: head speed, dribble, nice pass. Things are heated in Lisbon more than Leipzig. Also, with his limited PSG time, Ekitike was about on what was expected XG wise. So only this season he really underachieved. And most people watching with the eye would say he was a success. Jess, did you saw Party's comments? It seems like he won't leave Arsenal. I don't read his comments. Jess, he finished with 13 of our, but he finished 13 of our 20 goal opportunities. Gyokeres finished 67 out of 150. We finished 13 of our 20, 36 out of 150. What do you mean by that? Can you stop? What are y'all doing? Stop. Nasty. What are y'all doing? What do you mean by that? I would even take Jess over Arteta at this point. She would make Havertz into a world-class striker. No, I wouldn't. I would sell his ass. The fuck? Iden says, we need a striker who can score over 20 goals every season. Gyokeres can do it. Sesko can score roughly 15, but he can develop and improve his numbers. Both of them are good options. And I kind of agree with Iden. I think both of them have clear pluses and minuses, but I get why people are. What, honey? Are you okay? I get why people are more wanting Gyokeres, because his numbers scream he's going to be the guy. So I totally understand that. Like, I just think there are some cons with him that scare the shit out of me as well. So Leipzig ain't broke, multi-club model. They're like Brighton on steroids. We should get Leao if Rodrygo and Williams don't come. James Alcott analyzed Sesko's game so well. I want Sesko. I think, I think his name is like Harvey something, or there's another guy that did one. I think his name is like Harvey. He's like an Arsenal fan. I'm not doing a good job, like, with his name, but there was another guy that I think his name is like Harvey something, but he did a really good scouting report on Sesko as well. And what I like is when people do reports without biases. There was no like, oh, they're perfect, or there's no negatives. I think that was a really good one as well. Yeah, Harvey Gratian. He was really honest about his negatives, and I think that that's important, because obviously Sesko is not the finished article, so there's no reason to like pretend like he is. But I think he painted a pretty clear picture of what he can become and what he can be for us in the short term, and that's important. If Berta brings Gyokeres to the carpet, he can go away immediately. Or is it Klopp's mind Sesko's deal because him and Arteta was more of a respect each other? I don't know about all that. But Benzema. Stop it. Stop. Stop licking his eye. Oh my goodness. Can you stop? These boys are just ridiculous. Sesko finished, meaning 13 goals out of 20 opportunities. Gyokeres scored 67 goals out of 150 opportunities, probably. He's got 6 to 7 times more opportunities score than Sesko, I think. Well, he was in a better side, wasn't he? In an easier league. So if you score 13 goals out of 20 opportunities, that's not a bad return, is it? From 20 opportunities, you score 13. But, if you get 150 opportunities, you're going to score a lot more, so yeah. What would you say was the main cause of the amount of draws we had last? Don't want to repeat the next season. We lost only 4 games, which is not bad. The draws. Hold on quick. Hold on, guys. I need to. Sorry, he's just coughing and acting all weird and shit. And I'm like, are you gonna throw up? Because if you are, we're gonna need to go. But yeah, like I would just say like the main cause of our don't you do this to me right now. I swear. Don't throw up. Wait like 10 minutes. So I would say like the main cause was probably mentality. When we needed a goal, we just didn't have the ability to push for it. It just felt like no matter who we were playing, no matter what the team was like, if we couldn't, it's like we just stayed on the same path every single time. Like it's just crazy. Like every single game that we played was played the same. If we scored, that was cool. If we didn't, we didn't, so it just felt like we were more going through the motions, and that mentality lock in that you have to have when you need to score a goal, when you need to score an equalizer, we just didn't have, because we would just keep doing the same thing. Like we needed a goal against PSG, and we never upped the tempo, nothing. It was just we just kept doing the same things. We did the same thing against Bournemouth, we did the same thing against Brentford. There was time at the end of those games, like 20 minutes, to just try to push, and there was never a time where we, there was never a time where we went faster, we put more people forward, we really were taking more shots. It was just like we kept going through the same motions. And to me, that's more of a mentality issue than anything. This is Beckham. Isn't he so cute? Can you guys see him? This is Beckham, aka Bex, not the one throwing up. I don't think Ben's is throwing up anyway. I just think he needed to cough. So yeah, I think honestly, I think our inability to like get those from, draws to wins was more of a mentality thing than anything else, because we've seen those exact same players score 5 goals, score 3 goals, I think a striker helps and a winger helps, but we're talking about being able to beat Everton at home. Just not having a striker doesn't mean you can't beat him at home, beat Everton at home, So yeah. Isn't he so cute? He's so cute. Martinelli needs a good season or he's done out. That game changer left wing is as important as the striker. We need quality class in those 2 positions more than anything. I'm always worried about the board. They haven't exactly covered themselves in trust this past decade. Those dogs' names are criminal just. They're not. The reason why their names are not Arsenal-based names is not because I didn't try to think of any. I just couldn't find any cute ones. And I needed their names to be B names because I've only had dogs with B names. Like when Then I was born, family dog's name was Blaney. Then my first dog's name was Buffy. And then my parents' dog that's at home at my parents' house name is Bella. So everybody's name is a B. And so I had to carry that on. And so, like, I'm not naming my dog Bergkamp. That's not cute. Like, we're not gonna be Bergie. That sounds horrendous, you know. So I thought at nauseum about what I was gonna call these dogs. And so, and unfortunately, I love David Beckham. He just happens to be a United legend, but as far as I'm concerned, he transcends the sport. So I was like, I have like 3 or 4 Beckham books, like one of them down here. No, it's over there. Let me find it. See? You guys can see it? Sorry. It is what it is. I love David Beckham. Also, when I was younger, I was obsessed with Posh Spice. So when they got married, I was excited. And then when I went to fashion school, I did a report on Victoria Beckham and how she changed her life from being a Spice Girl to an actual fashion designer. I'm sorry. I was always probably going to name one of my dogs Beckham. And then I was like, oh, it'd be so cute to name the other one like Benz. And so it was, Benzema was right there. If I get another dog, I'll name it Bergie for you guys. But that's horrendous. Bergie is so Bex, Benz, that's cute. Bergie, like, come on. That's horrendous. Lordy Bettner. Imagine Bettner. Mm. Naming your dog David Beckham is wild. It's not David Beckham. His name is Beckham Black. Beckham Black. Not his name is not David Beckham. It's Beckham Black. That is a cute name. Like, hello. Johnny says, be named. Berta, obviously. We didn't have him yet. And when we sign another Havertz, you'll yell, bad Berta, no dinner for you. Poor dog has done nothing wrong. Bailey is a cute name, but my best friend's dog's name was Bailey. So I didn't want to steal that. And then she also has a dog named, she had Bailey and she had Kobe and she had like a couple of B names. So she had already taken them, you know? So I was like, I'm really like, I'm sorry. Beckham is a cute name. You guys you can't do nothing to me. Come on. Like, he's Beckham, you know? But yeah, Lord Bettner, that could be cute. Um, Naming it Bex is cool, but Beckham is a nah, sounds too mature. But yeah, but Beckham is a English gentleman, you know, from the countryside, you know, so he is a distinguished gentleman. He loves his tea and his crumpets, you know, so he's a distinguished gentleman. And Benzema is a French, you know, diplomat. So that's who they are. Bellerin, I mean, does that sound good though? You know, Bellerin, like I've tried that one too. Plus, I was not the biggest fan of Bellerin. I'm not gonna lie. I like him like in terms of fashion and all that kind of stuff, but towards the end, couldn't stand the sight of that guy. I was like, get him out. But yeah, we'll find different names. I feel like I'm gonna get another dog eventually, and we'll figure it out. But this is young Bex, so yeah. Um, Beckham Black, Jess, that screams you want to be Posh Spice. I can't blame you. He is the Brad Pitt of football. It's not even about the way he looks. Like he just it's just different. Like he just transcends the sport and he did so many cool things, you know, in terms of off the pitch stuff, and he married my favorite Spice Girl, and I thought I actually did think he was a really good player. I think it's cool that he went to Real Madrid and he played for PSG, and you know, he even trained with Arsenal for a little while. Like he just is somebody that I can't hate him. I'm so sorry. Like I said, he just happened to be a United legend, but to me, he's like, I don't even care about that. Bakayo is a cute one. Maybe the next one will be Bakayo too. So I would never name my dog Ramsey. I couldn't stand Aaron Ramsey. Sorry. Sorry. If I didn't do B names, I would have named my dog Jack because I love Jack Wilshere. So it would have been Jack. You know, I like that name. It's just plain, just Jack. Baggio, no. Cinderos. There's a couple different names. So yeah, but this is the old Bex. I know it's not good for an Arsenal fan, but he's just so cute. So yeah. But yeah, hopefully we get some updates soon, some good ones, especially like next week. I don't anticipate hearing anything this weekend, but it'd be really, really nice if Arsenal can get a move on or get the price down for Sesko and just get that done. Having Zuby, Sesko done before we start preseason would be great. Something tells me the left wing is going to take the entire window, you know, so yeah, because I'm not even sure they really want to do it. Let's see. Beckenbauer is a good one too, but Beckenbauer would also end up being Bex at the end of the day. So we got there in the end. Blackstenius, Black. It's fucking wild. Bobby Perez, that's a good one too. Young Bobby. There's other names I could have chosen. I just love Beck. I like Beckham. So cute. Distinguished gentleman. I just imagine him with like a little bow tie and a little vest with his little T, you know. Do you guys have dogs? What are their names? If you have pets, let me know. Put their names in the chat. I'd love to know so I can make fun of your names, you know, because what do you have? Rex, Old Butch, what's the names? Because I came up with interesting names. Let's see what your names are, since yours are so good. Bobo. My dog is called, no, it isn't. Kakarat? No, it's not. Kit Kat. We had a cat named Kit Kat. That's cute. Freddie and Pablo. Those are good names. Holly, a miniature Australian Shepherd. I feel like Holly is like a popular name. Yorkshire Terrier, a proper English dog. Here, the King of Canada, Mario, because he's super. I like that name, Mario. Luffy, Zola. Used to have a rabbit called Captain Bucky O'Hare. That's a great name. Savannah, Bob. I like these names. They're cute. Okay, so they're not as bad as I thought. None of like the usual. Valeria says, you seem so calm so far. When are you going to start losing your shit like the rest of us regarding the transfer window? I've done my time, Valeria. If you've been here, you know the tea. Not last summer, but the summer before, I had a huge meltdown because I thought like, so the backstory is I went to an event in London and like covering the Declan Rice transfer, like covering, like doing shows, multiple shows a day. And all of a sudden City gets involved. And my anxiety was like on 1,000 because I was just like, if they hijack him, I just don't think I'll make it. Like, I just don't think I'll survive it. And we went to an event and there was like some other like Arsenal people there. And James B was there. Robbie was there. Like, it was like a content creator event thing. And we all saw the tweet at once because we're all like hyper on our phones. And it was the DiMarzio tweet that said that, you know, City were hijacking the move. And I get that he's not super reliable, but it scared me out. Like, I was so scared. I was like, he's gone. Like, it's over. And so for like the next day, I was like crashing out on the timeline, only for obviously for him to come to us and like it for it to be okay. But after that, I just never really like I was like, I could never get that invested because I just couldn't like I just I just freaked out too much. So I was like, I need to cut grass. So last summer, I had a mini crash out after the window closed because I couldn't believe how bad it was. This summer, I just can't do it again. I just can't. Whatever shall be, but I've done my time. I've had my time being super like, what's going on? The window's open. Why isn't nobody coming in? I've done my time. So I just need to, I'm just going to let it be. Mm, I remember that. It was like not my finest hour. I really was so scared that they had taken him. I was like, it's done. It's done. And I was 100% with the Declan Rice signing. There's never been a signing under Mikel that I wanted more than that. Like, because I was like, yes, because I couldn't believe that we were going to get him. Like, I was like, there's no way we're getting Declan Rice. There's no way. So once I got my mind set on it, I was like, if they take him, I'm going seppuku. Like, you will never see me again, ever. And so that level of that panic, I never let myself get back to there. I also had a really bad crash out about Mudryk as well. So, like I said, I've done my time. I've done my time. Like, I've had it already. Um, when are you returning for Forever Arsenal? I don't know. Probably never. Like, I don't know. I don't think they need me anymore because I think it was just I was stepping in for somebody that was like out of town. So as long as they're there, I don't think they'll need me, which is cool. But I'm gonna get James on the show for sure. That was nasty work. Valeria, tell you just secret. She downplays Arsenal for a month, then she gets a free month when she can only get up morally. It's an interesting strategy. You can't get disappointed like that. It's all what you expect regardless. John says Timber was the most underrated transfer. Protect your mental health, Jess. I'm trying because I just can't do it again. I can't do it again because the Mudryk transfer happened on my birthday. The Mudryk hijack happened on my birthday. And I just remember being out with a bunch of football people, content people, and the banter was just so annoying. And I was like, this is just like the worst thing ever, And I mean, it ended up he wasn't like what we thought he was going to be, but at the time it was horrendous, you know. I just had like the worst crash out. So yeah, no more for me. Mudryk, we dodged a bullet, more like a nuclear missile. Jordan will be missed again. Don't worry. Imagine if we had Berta negotiating Mudryk and Caicedo. I don't know. Would it be different? Because right now we're still trying to figure out what's the difference between Berta and Edu. So we could be at the end of this window saying like, oh my gosh, it's so great having like an experienced DOF. This is amazing. Or we could be like, is he really what we thought he was? So I think we're still trying to figure that out. I don't know if you guys have been impressed with Berta so far, but I mean, nothing's really happened yet. I think the only thing that he really did was get Kepa. And I mean, that's not something that we're going to be like jumping for joy, right? Okay, it's time for you to get down, buddy. I know you're loving that shit. Loving being on camera. Life is fun. Let's see who Arsenal give us for the team and fans. So pessimistic. All will be fine. This dude really went and took drugs. How? I'll give it till preseason. Berta would have lined up Mudryk and say Pedro Neto at the same time. I would hope so. Yeah. Just had a meltdown after last season away game versus Spurs. This season, away game versus Spurs. I just hated the whole season last season from the very beginning. I think the transfer window put a bad taste in my mouth just right off the rip. And I went to 2 of the preseason games and there was just no vibe. Like it was very like, are we gonna be good or no? Because we don't look good, you know. And then we had Wolves and Brighton, and I was like, yeah, this is gonna be rough. But everybody was saying, we'll get better, it's fine. We did not get better. And and we are due for a win, even if it's damn cursed Tottenham won. I mean, Club World Cup preview. Club World Cup preview. There is no preview for it, but I'll be going to the game on Sunday. So PSG Atletico. So obviously I'll create some content for that. So if you guys are following me on Instagram, you guys will see that. But I'll make sure I'm gonna do like a little vloggy vlog for that. I'm actually really excited for it. It's gonna be fun. Watching like really good teams play in the US. We don't really get that. So I know it's like, oh, it's the US, but I mean, I'm excited for it. Um, Especially PSG because they're such a good team. So I'm actually, yeah. So yeah, I'm going to that, and then I'm also going to the Atletico Botafogo game. So, and we'll see what else I get to go to. But yeah, I'm excited to go to those games because they don't have anything to do with us. The FA says you're wearing your PSG shirt to the game. I don't know how you guys feel about it. I'm not like, because you guys know I'm an Arsenal fan, so it's like, and then when I do work, sometimes I do wear like other teams' kits. I try to only do national team kits, but sometimes you got to do the other stuff. But how do you guys feel about it? Because I know a lot of content creators, we end up wearing other teams' kits, and it does feel weird. I'm not gonna lie, but I feel like people have like very big like aversions towards it, and I'm like, yeah. So I don't know if I'm gonna wear the PSG kit or not, but I have one. Give me this. He was biting the end of my book. It's fine. Just don't wear the Argentine, Spurs, United, Liverpool kit. I don't like that's the thing is like I don't think I'd ever wear like another Premier League clubs kit. Like I feel like that's just that I would never do that. Even if I have like, like a soft spot, I would never wear like another Premier League team's kit. But teams from other leagues, you know, it is what it is. But I know some people have like a big like aversion to it. I'm just like, if somebody gives me a kit, I'm probably gonna wear it at some stage. Like, I don't know what to tell you guys. Um, Kepa was smart, to be fair. Good start from Birdie. I mean, it's good that we didn't spend the amount of money on Juan Garcia. Now, I think it's moot anyway, because I think going into this summer, he knew that he could get a starting position, a number one position somewhere. And so I don't think he ever would have agreed to come and be some sort of like battling number ones with Raya. But even if he was available to us, I think we have to use most of the money for other things. After the City game, I knew we were screwed. It was Arsenal versus PGMOL. They already labeled us as Atletico Madrid of the Premier League because we played dirty. They're not buying anyone until July. I want a gig with the same job security as Arteta. As long as it's not a Prem kit, it's fine. Just don't wear I read that one. And why hasn't Kepa been finalized? I think they said that they had some like last minute things to do for it. But we got like the here we go. So I'm not like really that worried about it. But with Arsenal, it's like we get the here we go, and then it takes like 2 more weeks to do like the last little bits on it, which sometimes for me I feel like is trying to figure out a way to spread out the payments, because Kepa's was a release clause. And we probably don't want to pay the release clause. So yeah. What are y'all doing over there? Doing? You're so loud. Natalie says, I wouldn't buy any other team's kit. Arsenal may not get my money, neither if the window is shite. I hear that. I have kids outside of the Prem, but it's all legend kids outside of the Prem, but it's all legend kids. Barcelona, Ronaldinho, PSG, Ronaldinho, R9, Inter. I think it's hard. Like, if you really are like a fan of the game, if you have an opportunity to get like a legends kit, it's not like I'm going out there and I'm like, okay, I want a I don't know, like, just think of, like, some random ass player on another team, like, I'm not gonna go get, like, I don't know, let me think, a a Koundé kid, because he's not like a legend of the game or anything like that. But yeah, if you give me like a Ronaldinho kit, I'm probably gonna wear it. Like, I don't know what to tell you. So I have a Real Madrid kit and it's really, really nice. I've shown it to you guys before, but it's like an old, like a legendary kit. Like, I'm gonna wear it. Like, I don't know what to tell you guys. The Portugal kit looks weird without Nike or Nike. Which team are you rooting for the women's Euros? Probably France. I think I haven't seen that group win anything yet, and I think it would be a shame if they don't win anything. That same kind of like core group was a part of the France team that we should have been the final in the 2019 World Cup. And the US, we defeated them. And then the teams progressively got easier towards them because you know how you see a game and you're like, this really should be the final. And that's essentially what happened. And that core group is still there. And they haven't won anything yet, not a World Cup or Euros. And so I'm kind of going for France. I just really like their players, Cascarino, Grace Gioro, Marjorie, Diani, Moroni, Millard, Marie Antoinette Katoto. They just deserve to win something. And they're just such a good group. I'm sad that they didn't win anything with Renard. So yeah, I'm probably going for France. Because I'm sorry, I'm not going to be going for England. And Spain, do we really need them to win anything else? Probably not. So probably, yeah, my girls on France. I want them to win. I'm interested to see how African teams will play in the Club World Cup. I think it's a really good concept, and if it's done right, I feel like people will get really interested in the tournament. It's just unfortunate that the players aren't as invested because they want a break, and I just feel like the standard may not be as good as we want it to be. But let's see how it goes. England women are having a dilemma over who's starting between Russo and the Chelsea striker. There really shouldn't be any dilemma between what is her name? Beaver Jones and Russo. I just feel like, Chelsea feel like all of their players should be starting, but Russo is a cut above. I know that Beaver Jones did well in like some of the upcoming games, like the friendlies or the Nations League or whatever it was, but Russo is a world-class player, and she played in your last World Cup. She's a big reason why they actually did well and got to a final. They didn't win, but to drop her for Beaver Jones just feels very like we just want Chelsea players in. Like, like I said before, you guys won't win anything without Leah back there. Whenever Leah's not back there, you don't win. But the one time that she was playing in the tournament, because obviously during the World Cup she had the ACL injury, but in the Euros you won with Leah, so Leah needs to be playing. So I don't know what to tell y'all. The way Inter played, Valeria only couldn't be belted to. Okay, you're talking to each other, I think. Could we have won the Champions League last season if we had gotten to the final? Every time a final is played in Bayern, a team that hasn't won it ended up winning. I don't think so. I just feel like not with the team that we had. I just feel like, we played at a certain level the whole season, and we would have had to have gone to another level that I don't think we had in us. I just, I don't think we had it. I think we played our final. Our final was Real Madrid, and after that, we didn't have anything else. So, I don't know. I don't think so. I just think PSG, if we had to play PSG, we would have lost. If we had to play Barcelona, we would have lost. And I wouldn't have trusted us against Inter either because Inter lost to PSG and they had injuries and stuff, but we're just a different team. We don't put the pressure on you. We don't move. We're not this similar as PSG. So it would have been a tactical manager trying to out tactic one of the better tactical managers, So I just don't think we had enough to win it. Like I said, we played our final. And that was against Real Madrid. We didn't have that next gear to go up. Move Russo to the men's team. No defender would touch her. She would file for. Okay, I don't like that comment, but I get what you're saying. I get you're trying to be funny. John says, I want either Spain or England to win because of Russo, Leah, and Caldente. F off with telling fans to be patient. It's been 20 years. The Cronkies lied when they knocked down Highbury. It's way past time to deliver on their promises. Patience. FO. I mean, I'm not trying to tell people to calm down or whatever, because I do understand the sentiment and people are frustrated, and I think they have every right to be. I think we're bordering on gaslighting when people are like, well, why are they so upset? It's so early in the window. The window is closed right now. Why do you expect things to happen? I just think that, it's at this stage when you haven't won anything in so long, people should be frustrated and they're losing patience, so um I get it. I do try to add a little bit of context and a little bit of common sense on things, because I feel like, you know, the idea that we're not going to sign any players is a little like, of course we are. We've already signed players, but I get it. I totally understand where people are coming from, especially after the last summer window. Come on. And I know you weren't really replying. I get what you're saying. Like, I just added on to the fact that, I try to explain this kind of like all the time, that I'm not understanding how people can get up on their high horse and say, you're just being ridiculous. Of course, we're going to get all the things that we're supposed to. It's early in the window. Why are you complaining? I just feel like that's like totally, like, I don't know how you could say that after the last window. No, I'm chilled, waiting for these Arteta sexuals to wake up and see reality. He ain't the guy, but let's watch it slowly. The women's team would lose 10-0 easily to the boys under 17s. It's substandard. Yeah. I mean, it is what it is. We got an aggressive inner circle. He just needs some weed. Then he'll be patient for a little more. I mean, I don't partake anymore, but I do feel like some people need a little bit of something to calm them down, because it's a long summer window, and if you're already upset, then I don't know how you're going to survive, because Arsenal just don't seem to be the type of club that are going to move quickly. You know, so yeah. I will panic, but not panicking yet. We will spend. Just let it simmer. Do you see us winning anything next season, factoring that Liverpool and City are strengthening their squad? I mean, I think, of course, like, we can still win stuff, because, even I don't think they'll win all of everything that's available. They never do, so of course we can win something. Now, with the Premier League, I kind of said this earlier, that I'm not sure what we could do in this window that would make me feel like our team is better than those two, with the improvements that they're making or have made. So, and I think in the Prem, you kind of have to be the best team. You're going to have the best manager, and you're going to have the best team. The only time outside of, like, since like Pep has been here and winning the Premier League, the only times that he hasn't won was when they really fell off in like 2019, like the COVID year, and this past season. And Liverpool have won both times. And you see how massive of a drop off it needed to be, by the way. So every other time, it's really been City, and they've been really dominant, so I genuinely think you have to be the best team to win the Premier League. And I'm not sure that if you get Sesko, even if you get Sesko and Rodrygo and Zubi, that we have the best team. I saw like a graphic of all their options. Bob, Bob, Savino, Doku, Turkey, Reinders, like, they have all these players, Marmouche, they actually, I mean, they most of their players are like attack mids that can also play wing, so they're not all wingers, but they just have so much quality and depth in those positions, and the positions that really make a difference, that I'm not sure there's anything that we can do this window, or we will do this window, that will make us better. And we know Pep is a much better manager than Arteta, so it would have to be a miracle, because Klopp could only win when City really fell off. really fell off, and they were like perfect. Liverpool had done everything in their power. They pushed them to like 100 points, So the Prem, I think, is out. I'll be honest with you. Because there's like not anything I feel like we could do. We could be in the title race, but I think we'll be third, you know. Um, Champions League, that's different. Depending on what side you're on, depending who you get, you don't have to be the best team in the Champions League to win it. You don't. You In my opinion, you don't have to be. I think you still need to be really, really good, but you don't have to be the best team. The good teams go out all the time because they're on the wrong side of the bracket, right? And then domestic cups are even more of a crapshoot. You got Crystal Palace is winning this season. Newcastle won a Carabao Cup this season. So of course we can win something, but the Prem is out for me. You have to be the best team. And there were the lucky seasons came around. Our opportunities to do our Leicester season happened twice. We had a season where we were well in front of them and they caught up. And then we had last season where they were nowhere to be found in slot one, so the Prem is out for me, but the other three are very much so still in play. If we can make sure that we have the X factor that you need to win semifinals and finals. And that's our problem is we got stopped in 2 semifinals this season, Carabao Cup and in the Champions League. And I would say that one of our bigger problems in those semifinals was not having the players that make the difference at the tippy end of the pitch. Not having the type of attackers that score the chance that Martinelli missed, not having the type of attackers that make the chances that Odegaard and Kai Havertz missed in the Carabao Cup. Because we had chances in both of those semifinals, and we couldn't force ourselves to the semi or the final because we didn't have the end product. So of course we can win something next season, but the Prem is out for me. We're not going to win the Premier League, but you have a good chance of domestic cups like you always do. And then you have the Champions League where, you can fraud your way to a Champions League final if you just kind of just make it work, but you still need to have X factor. That's for sure. The way Turkey can change a game in under 30 minutes is scary. You're right, Jess. Top 4 FC is all KSC care about. I've never smoked weed in my life again. I'm all talk, but here it does wonders for your aggression. Good thing I'm not aggressive. 23-24 season, we finished our transfer business pretty early. Yeah, we finished it really fast, but the season, like the summer, this summer and last summer, it kind of had the same kind of feel to it where there's kind of like some non-committal type of things going on, very slow, a lot of talk about we're doing this and we're looking at our options and we're doing that, we're interested, we're monitoring, we're thinking, we're doing this. And to be honest, both Timber and Havertz came out of nowhere, and both deals were about 90% done when we finally heard about them. Raya kind of came out of nowhere as well. It was a market opportunity that Arsenal did not even think as soon as they knew. Because remember, Raya was going to Tottenham, and Tottenham couldn't come up with the money to pay Brentford. So we swooped in and took him. And it only took us 5 minutes to get it done. And we had Declan Rice, and we knew before the season even ended that we wanted Declan Rice. And so probably the one window that I can look at under this regime that's been a serious window, we still didn't get everything right, but at least we got things in early. And we got a lot of 3 really top quality players in. 3 of those, one was a market opportunity. 2 of those signings came out of nowhere, and by the time we knew about them, they were about 90% done. And the other one was our marquee signing, and we knew we were going to sign him before the summer even started, before the window even opened. And so the last 2 windows have been quite similar, where there's not a lot of clarity. We know what our targets are, but we're not really making the moves for them. There's a lot of hemming and hawing. I think that's what I would say. There's a lot of hemming and hawing. If this, maybe these are their links. If this, they're looking, they're monitoring. Oh, this is happening. They're trying to understand what's the situation. It's all very hemming and hawing, and we know what a serious window for Arsenal looks like is the 23-24 window where we things were just done. The Timber one, when we found out about that, it was damn near done. It was like already done. It was just like we just had to agree the fee and it was like done already. So I'm not a big fan of the way that this window has started because it does feel quite similar to the last window where it just feels kind of non-committal in a way where we should know what our main target is and be going after them. And that's why I was questioning the Nico Williams link was because we've not had a number one target that we really wanted and we didn't go get it. We knew Jesus was our top target in like 2-3 summers ago. And before the summer even started, we had him already. We knew he was coming. Like Chelsea tried to swoop in last minute, but it was done already. We knew we wanted Declan Rice. He was our number one target. We went and got him. Nico Williams has been our number one target, a top target for a minute now, and we haven't went and got him. And some part of me feels like it's because, well, Nico Williams is kind of like we want him, but we knew he didn't really want us, so we're just kind of like, he's our number one option. But when it comes to Sesko, I feel like there's a lot more hemming and hawing because the number one option actually was Isak. And so there's kind of like a non-committal kind of feeling about it where, well, at this fee, at this price, because if Isak had been available to us, he would have been done already. You know what Arsenal look like when they really want someone, My thing, bar Rice, I don't remember Arsenal beating a big team to a major signing. Yeah, I think I kind of asked that the other day. I was like, who have we beat to a signing for real? And there wasn't like a lot of examples, but yeah, Timber is more of this season signing. Not really, because Timber, we didn't know anything about it. Because I remember sitting there and I was refreshing Twitter, and then I saw Hagen just put up like a emoji with wood on it, like a little wood block on it, and I was like, the fuck? And I was like, Timber. And then like 2 seconds later, a report from the Netherlands came out saying that we were like in active negotiations for Timber. And prior to that, we had never been linked to him before. So if you're saying from the aspect of we haven't heard anything about anything, then maybe yes, but like it's not like it's I guess we're assuming that we'll have a Timber like signing and something will just be done, so we'll see. Let's see. With the way our main rivals are signing players, every day feels like a deadline day. Just seeing other teams you support to be competing with move quickly and get quality players. Would you take the makes the anxiety worse? Do you think it makes the anxiety worse? We are vulnerable, especially after last season. I mean, yeah, the anxiety, the anxiety is normal when you see other teams acting quickly, especially when we don't have trust. We've never really had trust in Arsenal in the transfer window since we've been at the Emirates. This is a long-standing battle of needing things and not getting them. And I think for this particular regime, a lot of people gave them a pass on the Havertz thing, but that was like the initial kind of like, okay, what the fuck? Because I think for the most part, under Mikel, we could get behind most of the signings. Gabriel, Party, William was a bust, but we could kind of get over that. We got Odegaard, Ramsdale, White, Tommy, Tavares and Sambi were kind of bust, but it was kind of like, okay, well, they were young players and it didn't work out. Gabriel Jesus and Zinchenko we could get behind. Fabio didn't work out, but it was kind of like, okay. Then you get this window where you have Raya and Timber, Declan Rice, and Kai. I think people kind of really did not understand the Kai thing. I think that kind of set people off with the red flag. but we kind of got over it because we got Rice and the other things. Then you fast forward to the next window and you don't do anything. And I think that reminded people so much of like the Czech window or, the Suarez window, where we did 40-1, the window where we were meant to get Thomas Lamar and, windows where it was painfully obvious that we needed things to really compete and we didn't get them. And so I think from that moment, the trust is so broken now that there's just and then you double down in January when we had so many injuries and then we got more injuries during the January window. They kind of pretended like they were going after people and didn't really get it done. And then we find out later that they turned down the opportunity to get Ollie Watkins over 20 million pounds. And that could have been the difference between us winning something or not, And so I just think when you do all of that, it's very normal for Arsenal to have anxiety. It's compounded when you watch teams that you're supposed to be competing against get 4 signings done and dusted before they go to a tournament, and we're still kind of hemming and hawing on things. We don't know for sure deep down we're going to get a left wing. We don't know. I think we all kind of feel like we'll get a striker, but the left wing is still like, are we going to get it? Are we not? So I think it's normal. I lost my shit when we missed out on both Mudryk and Caicedo that January. One positive thing about this transfer window is Zubimendi, probably the most sought after midfielder. We beat Liverpool for him in Jan and Madrid just days ago. I think I am still calm, but we'll be worried mid-July if most of our main targets are not at least concluding. Worried the most about the left wing position, a lot of options, not all appropriate for Arsenal. And I agree with you, Dee. The left wing position is the one that's really kind of like concerning to me at this point because it doesn't feel like something that it just doesn't feel very like set in stone. We know we're going to get one no matter what. If our only options are Nico Williams and Rodrygo, and both of them end up not coming to us. And then like the only other people that have been mentioned is like Gordon. We know we're not getting Gordon. Newcastle fucking hate our guts. They're going to quote us 80 million or some shit like that. And he is not worth that, so yeah. Also, I didn't like the talk about keeping both Martinelli and Trossard because ultimately I feel like if Arsenal really want to move, really want to move on a left wing, one of them will go and should, because we don't need 3 left wings. We actually need a right wing, so it'd be nice to get a left wing and a right wing and to move on one of our left wings because, you don't need all of them, but let's be real. I'm just banking on the fact that Fab and Ornstein said that we want an important left wing. Yeah, I think when they kind of said that we were going to get a striker last summer and then we didn't get it, even though they're saying that we're going to get it, I don't believe that 100% it means it's set in stone because they just have this thing about once they get past that one first option, they kind of just say, well, and it doesn't feel like they have the ability to pivot. Chelsea have pivoted to Jamie Gittins. They wanted Nico Williams, but I think instead of just waiting around for nothing, they struck on Jamie Gittins because they probably anticipated, okay, if we're not getting Nico Williams. Once Arsenal figure out that they're not getting Nico Williams, they might go to Jamie Gittins. So let's get ahead of them on that. So they'll get Jamie Gittins. We're not going to get, if we don't get Nico Williams or Rodrygo, then another good option is unavailable. What do we do from there? You see what I'm saying? So yeah, I've never seen a team lack the ability to pivot. We have to get our number one option. And if we don't get it, it's not happening, so. And if we don't, it usually is like the next window where maybe we get it as well. It's very rare that within a window we switch up, and I think the only window where we kind of saw that was like the January window where we, instead of getting Caicedo and Mudryk, we pivoted and went for Trossard and Jorginho. But to be honest, as much as I like those 2 players, you guys know Trossard FC all day long, every day. I love Trossard down. I love him. And as much as I didn't want Jorginho, I really came to really respect him and love him as well. But there's a huge difference between Caicedo and Mudryk at that time and Trossard and Jorginho, So, yeah, we need to be able to pivot a lot quicker. Invisible says we should really sign someone in our fitness team. Injuries really cost us last 2 seasons badly. I mean, I think there needs to be a shakeup in the assistants. You know, we've seen that Pep has gotten rid of his entire staff and gotten new people in to give him new ideas. In fact, he got Pep Linders, you know, and if Pep Linders, we know what he's going to be about. He's going to try to get them running and playing good attacking football and more of like, probably more like a Klopp style. Teams are moving to 10s, 9s, running, you know, attack minded football, simplistic football, 1-2s, you know, up, back, and through, you know, those simple football principles that we grew up on. People are going back to that. And so Pep has gotten a whole new staff to help give him more ideas. And we're going to have the same stale ideas that we've had over the last couple of seasons. You know, so if anything, this season should have shown them that they probably need some new ideas in the training room, you know, people that are actually training the players, because whatever we're doing attack wise is not good enough, you know. So yeah, I would also go to 27 players with MLS Ethan not counting towards the 25 men's squad since they're 21 from the academy. I hear that. I hear that. Coach, the only reason why I don't put your comments up is because I just remember a couple of years ago where you said I was racist. And I don't really put up comments or interact with people that say rude things about me. So you're more than allowed to be in the comment section, but I don't really appreciate those types of comments. So I just tend to ignore your comments, unfortunately. So it's not really beef, but that really hurt my feelings. And so, yeah. Valeria says, what is the most catastrophic signing Mikel has ever made, in your opinion? Kai? Like, I feel like that's so obvious. Kai is, to me, one of the worst signings he could have possibly made. Because when you're in a position of strength, where we were when we first challenged and we didn't win, we still could have probably attracted most players in the world at that time, because we were seen as one of the best up and coming projects at that point. And instead of going out there and getting a Xavi Simons or a Kudus or, you know, somebody like that, we went out there and got somebody that just, you know, I just think that's the worst signing you could have possibly made. I think also because it feels like a vanity signing, something about like him wanting to coach a player that, you know, up and get, like, it's almost like I want to show people how good of a coach I am. So I'm going to get Leverkusen Kai back. And he hasn't been able to bring that up or out of him at all. And so now we're trying to figure out a way to make a signing work that's kind of blocking us from being able to do other things. And so, and he had to convince people to bring him in. To me, that's the worst signing he's ever made. Worse than Willian, worse than Sterling, because those players were just like washed. This player, he actually think is good. Like, he actually thinks he's good. So yeah. Maria says also gave 65 million to Chelsea. I mean, I feel like that's like the biggest, like, you know what I mean? Like, that's got to be the biggest one for me. Sal Havertz, for me, I will never forgive him for letting Tony go. Kudus must really hate us. Dude was waiting in a hotel room for months thinking we're going to sign him. Then Edu told him, no, we're picking Havertz. Come on, Jess, please forgive the guy. Never hold a grudge for more than like a day, regardless of what anybody says. Listen, I'm not kicking him out or anything like that, but yeah, you guys know how I feel about those kind of comments. So yeah. D says, agree with you, Jess. Even if Kai was our main target, Chelsea didn't value him at all. 65 million. Joshua says, are you a real Arsenal fan? No, I'm not. I'm a fake Arsenal fan. If only he could just accept his failure like Liverpool have with Nunez and are trying to sell him. I also just think that, like, you know, like Liverpool have gotten Nunez, but that hasn't really stopped them from getting Gakpo, you know. So it's like they have other attacking players that I think lessen the blow of having somebody like Nunez, because towards the end he wasn't even starting anymore, right? Havertz is going to stop us from getting other people, because we have this obsession with, like, unless it's a goalkeeper, we're going to try to make it work. because we have this player, because if Jesus was not injured, Kai Havertz would have never really played up front. He would have played midfield. Arteta would have done his fucked up diamond, so I just feel like I'm a big proponent of failing fast. So if it doesn't work, just move on. Don't try to like make it work after like a certain period of time. Arsenal are not the type of team like we're kind of like the only team like this where, like if we had Nico Jackson, we would feel like we were fine. We'd feel like we were fine. We wouldn't be going after a striker. We'd be like, it's cool. Like he gets a lot of chances, he misses them, but it's cool. You know, if we had Nunez, we'd probably do the same thing. But like a Chelsea is going after Delap and also Ekitike, and they know that they have Jackson. Jackson is going to be under so much pressure next season. I feel like he'll be sold the next summer for a profit, by the way. But we do this thing where it's like we have Kai now, so like it's taken us this long to maybe get a striker, and we're still hemming and hawing a little bit. So yeah, for me personally, it's indefensible. It's just not the type of signing that you make when you're at the tippy top, like when you're really pushing and you're in a really good space. That is a vanity signing that didn't work. And because Jesus was injured, he found a way to utilize him. And he got so arrogant that he felt confident telling Sesko he wouldn't get playing time. So we ended up not getting a striker. It cost us. And now you're still not even confident we're going to get somebody because we know it's not Isak. And we know that that's who he wants. So it's just, yeah, it's wild. Somebody getting kicked out? No, nobody's getting kicked off. John says with Rodrygo's situation, does Berta and Arteta allowed to meet with him? With Rodrygo's situation, does Berta and Arteta allowed to meet with him? I think you can talk to anybody you want to. I would imagine that he's able to do Zoom calls. We know that he's spoken to possibly Gabriel, maybe Odegaard, maybe Martinelli. So I'm sure people have talked to him already. And I would not be surprised if he has spoken to at least Mikel. But they know that we're waiting, because if I was Rodrygo, I wouldn't even be considering going to a place if I haven't spoken to the manager, so I'm sure we've spoken to him. I think you can talk to people if you want to. You just have to keep it on the low. But yeah, I'm sure that they've talked to him. If Arteta is this obsessed with Rodrygo, he's gotten some sort of indication from him that he'd be interested, but he might end up just being like a tease, because again, I just think it's a really big situation to, it's a big decision to make. And, it's not like and this is not to even shade Arsenal at all, but we're talking about going from a team that's guaranteed to win to a team that you're going to have to go and carry to wins to a certain extent or carry to trophies. So his role would change. If he doesn't back himself, he can't come, so yeah. Valeria says, do you take timeouts for the channel work, Jess? I mean, I basically had to stop streaming at the end of this season, because I just felt like my whole energy was just so bad that like if I was doing streams, you guys would have not enjoyed them because I was so like just down on the season. I really could not give a fuck. I was like, excuse me, sorry if I'm sorry about the cussing, my bad. But I was so done with the season that I actually really did clock out around December. I was like, I just cannot go again. Like, I just don't have it in me. And I just wanted us to make top four and get out. The only time that I kind of got reinvested was when we surprisingly beat Real Madrid. But then it was like, it was wiped away instantly when we played against PSG. So I kind of like forced myself to take a break almost because I just couldn't do it anymore. But, I think I did 4 years straight, without any stops. And then now I'm working full time in the industry, so it's even harder, but I'm trying to stay as consistent as I possibly can, trying to do one a day. But it's tough, Arsenal content is hard to make, so yeah. Hope he has the cojones. John says Trent speaking Spanish already is mad. He was probably Duolingo for 2 years. He already made up his mind. Listen, Joshua, I'll be honest with you. I want to stop cussing, but I can't promise, so if you're not somebody, I also put on my YouTube profile that this content is not for children. And that's exactly why I put it up, because I know that I'll drop an F-bomb here or there. So if you don't like cussing, this may not be the place that you want to follow from. And there are plenty of YouTube channels that are a lot more buttoned up than mine, but I'm be so real, like I'm probably gonna drop another F-bomb. So follow at your own, you know what I mean? If you want to. At this point, it could be a tease, but could also be big promise from Arteta. You are the missing puzzle. You are the rightful king on the left in the team that trashed Madrid just now. Lots of things. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you offer him everything. You offer him 300,000 pounds a week. You offer him like a contract very similar to what you're offering Saka, all the incentives, the number 10, everything. You tell him that you're the missing piece. You talk him up. He's the exact different role that he's going to be playing at Real Madrid, and you hope that, you know, he wants to take it. But, you know, again, we're talking about leaving Real Madrid as well. So, you know, I hope that he does, because he would be my number one option, especially now that Nico Williams is, you know, probably off to Barcelona. But if, like I said, if he doesn't come, we need to be so freaking for real and just move on and go do something else. We can't be pining for him for another couple of years. Like, go talk to Lookman, go talk to Liao, go talk to Nusa, go talk to someone else and bring somebody in, because I mean this with like my whole heart. I don't think it would be that hard to upgrade on what we have, because what we have is really, really poor, you know? So yeah. And don't harass Joshua in the comments. You know, he just doesn't want to hear the cussing, and I understand, you know, and I think he gets what I'm saying now. So don't need to harass him or anything. Well, let's be nice. Someone said Big Gabby and Rodrygo are very good friends. Is that true? Anyone know anything about that? I don't know that. The only person that I know Gabrielle is friends with is Declan Rice. I don't know who else is he friends with. You know, I don't know. Now I could tell you all the friendships at Arsenal, because I pay attention to that. But when they go to Brazil, I don't know who they're friends with. You know, so I wouldn't know that. You know, but maybe they are. And I'm sure like Gabriel will do his part. You know, he's talking him up in interviews and things like that, very similarly to things that we did when we wanted Declan Rice. It's just we're waiting on him to make a decision, and you know, hopefully he makes it sooner rather than later. What happened to Martinelli and Vieira? Are they still friends? I'm sure they are, but like, how are they going to hang out now? You know, Fabio, I mean, I'm sure they would go on vacation with each other if they could right now, but you know, he's going to the Club World Cup with Porto, you know, but they were like, I don't think anybody on the team was closer than Fabio and Martinelli. The second closest is Odegaard and Kai Havertz. Odegaard and Kai Havertz are like, they love each other. Like, they are so close. But Martinelli and Fabio Vieira, I didn't think that Martinelli was going to survive without him. I've never seen Martinelli this close. He actually severed ties with Sacanelli to go be besties with Fabio Vieira. He never even talked to Saka anymore. Like, it was just wild, you know? So yeah, I think they're probably still friends, but you know, they're in completely different countries doing different things, you know? So yeah, but to my knowledge, they're, you know, the besties are Odegaard and Kai for sure. Now Ben White and Ramsdale were really close, but obviously Ramsdale's not on the team anymore. Gabrielle and Declan are yappers and really close. And I actually think Calafiori and Declan Rice are pretty close too now. And actually Saliba and Tomiyasu are really good friends. I don't know who Timber's really good friends with. I don't know who Thomas is really good friends with. And Jesus, I don't know who he's really good friends with either. But yeah, those are like the friendships that I feel like are there, unless they're hiding. I could see Rice and Saka, Timber and Saka, yeah, Bible boys for sure. Saka and Timber nowadays. I think Ben and Kai are quite close. I think they live in like the same like area or same like thing, but don't get it twisted. Kai's best friend is Odegaard. But yes, Ben and Kai are also close because they live closely to each other. But Ben, I feel like, is kind of like a little bit of like a loner in a way. Like he has friends, but he's kind of like, I don't have friends, you know. But he was really close to Ramsdale. So yeah, Saka and Timber are like two brothers of Christ. Zich says, I would love a deep dive in all the Arsenal friendships and the tea. Me too. Like I'm always like looking at like their Instagrams and seeing who's hanging out and who's commenting and stuff. And they all seem like really like outside of like, being frustrated with them for certain things. I do think the team is full of really nice guys. Like I think they're really nice, cool guys. I think even like I know that people didn't like Zinni, but I also think Zinni was really funny, and they all said he was really funny. So I don't know who's gonna fill that class clown kind of role anymore. Also, Kieran Tierney and White were really close. Trossard and Odegaard, all their wives hang out. Trossard, Odegaard, Ben White, and Kai Havertz, I think all of their girlfriends hang out together. And then also Bukayo Saka's girlfriend. So yeah, they're all really close. We just need to bring in the X factor. Like that's it, you know. And also that's why I was like, is Arteta gonna really want Gyokeres around? Because Gyokeres is not really like I'm sorry, just from following him just a little bit, I don't feel like he's a friends and family kind of guy. I think he's a little bit of like a tramp in the streets, you know. So I don't know if Arteta wanted that energy around because everybody has to get married, you know. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know. But Sesko, I think, is probably a friends and family type of guy. Not sure who Kivior is close to because he's so quiet too. So I don't know if he has any friends on the team, but yeah. Um, I miss the Saka ESR friendship. Don't remember the last time I heard their song played in the Emirates. Yeah, I mean, those are good times. I think we also just didn't have a lot of positive stuff going on at that time. There was just so much like change and then COVID and all that. So having ESR and Saka, that was like so wholesome. But we have MLS and Ethan now, and I'm sure they will kind of fill that void. Does their names fit in the song or no? I don't know, but I think we have that. And honestly, Ethan, I know that, and we're just kind of off topic here, but there's still like 1,800 of you guys watching. So I just feel like Ethan, people have cooled on him just a little bit for several reasons. And one of those was because, like, the end of the season, he kind of tapered off a little bit. And I don't think it's because he's not a good player or anything. I just think it's like natural progression into the first team for the first time. He spoke about it. He understands why Mikel didn't play him as much as the end of the season. There's no beef. He just knows he needs to like work harder and work on things. But I also think other teams getting number 10s has made people like maybe shove him on the shelf a little bit, and they're like, well, I just want something new, shiny new toy thing. And I've said that I feel like a number 10, especially somebody that can play on the left, because neither one of Max or Ethan are particularly like left-sided players. They're more right-sided players. It'd be nice to bring someone in. That being said, I do think that something to look forward to next season is Ethan's progression. I do think that he's kind of going under the radar again for some reason. But he's obviously going to have an MLS season next season, I feel. I think that we expected him to be the more, the one that had the most impact, but MLS kind of surprised us. And Ethan had maybe like a little bit of a bumpier road. But just going back and watching his comp from this season and then watching him for the under 21s like yesterday, even for like the 20 minutes, I think we're underrating how good he's going to be for us and what he adds to the team. I know there's frustration around, Odegaard, and does he shoot enough and does he have enough of like that X factor and stuff like that. Ethan has all those things, and so he's young, but if you're not young enough, if you're old, if you're good enough, you're you're good enough, you're old enough or whatever. So I think he's going to play a much bigger role, and I'm actually excited to see what his next progression is going to be because he's really, really good. Johnny says, I like a tramp in the streets. It doesn't keep the goods just from one guy. Okay. Ethan wasn't given proper minutes. He didn't taper off. Jess talking all for herself on Winieri right now. Very worried about how we are slow in the window. No backups for sake. Odegaard and even Rice, still no clinical striker or forward, no world-class wingers. We are regressing when rivals are better. Who's Raya's friend? I have no idea who Raya's friends with. Arteta has let Ethan play. If that's going to happen, Arteta has to let Ethan play. I think he is going to play more next season, though. I don't listen. I think Ethan played more than I thought he would last season, if I'm honest. Like, I think a lot of the injuries gave him more opportunities. Now, some people think that he should have played more and played a bigger role. And then other people feel like that was enough. That's neither here nor there. I think he's going to play more next season. I think he'll be trusted more. And I think he should get more minutes because to me, he's obviously really, really talented. I don't know when I think also Max too has impacted the way that people think about Ethan because it's shiny new toy. We all do it, but Max coming through and then watching his comps, I'm seeing people like just rave about those. And I'm like, don't forget about Ethan. He's here too, so Ethan's 100% going to play a much bigger role this season, and he should because he's really, really good, and he has the things that some of our other players don't have. I think he has qualities that, even though I feel like Odegaard and Saka are obviously ahead of him and like more mature and like experienced, he still has things that he can do that they cannot replicate, So yeah, I think he's gonna play more. And I think we should be excited about it. It's outside of signings, but like I just think he's so good. Ethan will be fine next season. Some Arsenal fans are overanalyzing him when he is still 17 years old. I mean, I just think some people have a very like stark like opinion that Ethan or Arteta doesn't like the youth. He doesn't like young players, or he's trying to protect his favorites and keep Ethan away. So if you feel that way, then maybe you didn't feel like he played enough. If Calafiore's injury didn't happen, we would have been spending a lot on a left back position yet again, but we still may. They're looking at Hato. There's reports out that we're actually already in talks, for they're already in talks for Hato. Now, that's not coming from any of the more reliable people, but we have made calls to see what the situation is. And so we may still go after, a bigger target. Let's see. Arsenal are in close contact with Hato's camp. His team is unsure about the minutes next season and are open to options. Chelsea's interest adds competition with potentially more games on offer. Arsenal's interest in João Hato is real. Discussions have taken place. Arsenal have asked Ajax about João Hato. NJB, which is another like in the know, says as of yesterday, Arsenal is the team most likely to secure the services. So, I mean, it's the Sun, but the Sun's saying that Arsenal and Ajax are in talks for João Hato. So, we still may spend quite a bit on a left back because he's not going to be cheap. He's not going to be cheap, We should not be trying to sign any defenders. Focus on the bloody attack. Johnny says Ethan will get minutes. We'll get the Sterling minutes. And the Ethan minutes will be gotten by Martinelli or something like that. I mean, I feel like there's two ways of thinking about it. We can because Ethan essentially took Raheem Sterling's minutes this season anyway, because Ethan really shouldn't have been playing over Sterling, but Arteta was, I guess, so sick of Sterling that he was like, "No, I'm just gonna play Ethan instead." So essentially he should be getting, whatever, minutes behind Odegaard and minutes behind Saka. Um, really, if we want him to. So, yeah, I mean, I think Ethan is more than good enough to step in. But equally, I wouldn't mind if we still got someone else that can just primarily play right wing if we just need like an actual right winger instead of a number 10 on the right. But, I also just really like Ethan and I think he's done so well for us this past season. And um, you know, I'm just I'm just loving him. The difference between MLS and Ethan, why has MLS been trusted more, even though he's made quite a few mistakes last season, like getting sent off. Love them both though. Um, well, I think just the players that play in Ethan's position versus the players that play in MLS's position make it a little bit more obvious. No Tamiyasu, no Calafiori, both were super injury prone. Now, if either one of them had been fit for a considerable amount of time, I think MLS's time would have been cut shorter. Arteta loves Tamiyasu and he also loves Calafiori. So I think the fact that it was Tierney and Zinchenko waiting in the wings versus Calafiori and Tommy made a difference versus Odegaard and Saka. I think there's obviously a big difference between those players. And then I just think MLS physically is just a little bit more capable than Ethan because when Ethan first came into the team, he was kind of like an unknown quantity for teams. But once they kind of cottoned on to the fact that they could just be a little bit physical with Ethan and shove him off of the ball and show him out wide, and he couldn't get past them, it made it more difficult for him to get past his man in the winger position. So I think it was just like that kind of stuff where MLS physically was just up to it. Like he was just a different beast. So it's just a different vibe. And it's just harder to get into our attack for some reason than it is for the defense, which sounds weird because our attack is not as good as our defense. But, if Ethan was a left winger, it would be different, but he plays on the right, so there's players there. I prefer Ethan as a winger, to be honest. With Tricky and Reinders in, what will happen to Phil Foden? He might be off the bench player. I mean, that would be a interesting turn of events, but equally, I don't really give a fuck. Foden to me is somebody that I wouldn't say like I just feel like he's just a piece of a puzzle. Like he's not a player that's going to carry a team or anything and they need to find somebody like a KDB to, you know, push them on and he's just not that guy. So if he plays the roll off of the bench is that much different than what he has been playing. He's not somebody that Pep particularly continues to, he's not a core guy anyway, so who cares? Ethan was not given a chance when Odegaard got injured, even though he was the closest thing to replacing him in the team. Yeah, I thought that was probably the one time that I felt for sure Ethan should have played. He should have played when Odegaard was out injured. I wouldn't say I was surprised. I wouldn't say I was surprised. I was just more disappointed that Arteta did like Kai and Trossard instead. I know it kind of worked in some games, but when it didn't, it was really bad. And at that time, I don't know if you guys really remember, but at that time, we were playing Southampton and Leicester like back to back. And I was like, okay, you could have him play against, Leicester and Southampton. And I think there was like a cup game too, like a Carabao Cup game. And those games could get him ready to play away at Tottenham. And I know people were like, that's such a big game. And I was just like, yeah, but, again, if you're good enough, you're old enough or whatever. So if he can play these two games and do really well, then he'll be ready to go away at Tottenham. Like we have so many like older players that should be able to carry one 17-year-old in the team. Cause at that point, I don't think MLS was in the team yet. And he didn't play him. when we went to Tottenham and played some of the worst football I've ever seen, it was really difficult to get through. We won on a Gabriel header, which was fine. But, I thought he missed a trick because he had about like 5 games or so where he could have bedded him in and he would have been I think he would have been better off for it, but that's just me. Yeri will surprise us next season. I'm betting on it right now, and he'll be starting left 8 by the end of the season. Big reason will be a Rice injury, praying it doesn't happen, but with our luck, please. Seppuku, I will not survive a Rice injury. I'm sorry. I can't do it. I need him to stay fit. There's just no way. I just can't do it. So, but I hear you. But I would mind seeing Ethan left-sided center mid. We spoke about this yesterday at nauseum, but the Arteta situation with 2 attacking mids doesn't ever work, So yeah. But yeah, you guys, let's go on and end the show here. We went for much longer than I expected, but it is what it is. But your girl has shit to do, So, oh, excuse me. Sorry, Joshua. But listen, let's go ahead and get out of here. Make sure you guys like the video and subscribe to the channel on your way out. If anything happens, you guys know I'll go live, but otherwise, it'll just be touch and go for the weekend. Make sure you guys are following me on Instagram at Jessica Black TV so you guys can see my vlogs and all that for the Club World Cup. I'll be going to quite a few matches for the next couple of days. So in the Club World Cup and other things. So make sure you guys are following that. And I will see you guys on the next one. Enjoy your weekend if I don't see you guys until later. And happy Father's Day to whoever is a father, because Father's Day is what? On Sunday, is it not? So if you guys are dads out there, happy Father's Day if I don't hear from you guys on Sunday. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye, guys.